Hi, and welcome to Thursday with a Friend. My name is Lawrence, Larry Punk, many other names. I'm sure somebody else can call me and have called me, maybe Dungeon Dweller or something like that. Anyway, today I have a very special guest who I actually met this guy when I was on with uh, my moderator Action Figs Ed and Mr. Wonderful, who recently this weekend this week he just happened to fill in for Mr. Wonderful, who surprise surprise was on vacation again. Well, my special bald guest, Skunk Works himself. How are you doing?
Hey man, I'm doing great. How are you tonight?
I'm doing excellent. You already asked me this.
I did. We'll do it the formal way.
No, yeah, exactly.
Hey,
I hate
I
to
didn't
say
get
this.
I didn't get to tell you though. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it because
Oh, thank thank you for joining me because it's always good to get someone. Well, I always have someone new on, and I told you earlier the whole purpose of the show is to bring someone on who has been supporting me somewhere, whether it be on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, just in general. And so after we did that show, man, it's been like 6 months or whatever. You were like such a cool guy. Um,
thanks, man.
And I can say this, like I've seen you before. I'm not. I don't get intimidated, but I'm like, this is an intimidating guy. You got that big.
Oh,
You got that big beard, and again, you don't know how big someone is when they're sitting down in the chair. And I think we discussed
no.
it that you're not the
Yep.
biggest guy, like height
Nope.
wise.
Nope.
But
Nope.
either way, I do appreciate you the jumping on here. And what I was saying is that I wish we could, but you can't. Normally the normally the show before and after is usually even better, and especially all those live streams like on Oz's Clubhouse and stuff like that. When you're off camera, that's when everything really shines. But there's only so much stuff that you can talk about on air.
But yeah, I would always sound like off camera you're a little more unfiltered and you can speak more freely to the audience, And I even do that with my videos. I have to dial it back a little bit a lot of the time.
It's kind of weird because I find myself, it's I like to say, and I think like all the guys that have met me, whether it be at Joe Fast or what was the other one? Yeah, the other con from Masters of the Universe, Power Con. Like
PowerCon,
I'm the
yeah.
same person. I'm the same person that you see on here, but sometimes I'm a little bit more animated here. Um, and there are some things that you can say off screen, um, and things that you can say to certain people that can take jokes. There's some people that can't take specific types of jokes, and you have to pull back, right? Like I don't want to say who you can say bad jokes to, but there's a few people on here. And
Yeah,
some
for
people,
sure.
they don't find that type of stuff funny, and that's perfectly fine. You just ignore some of those reels that you may send to someone else.
That's my
um,
Facebook.
yeah, well, my
That's my
Instagram,
personal Facebook. Yep.
yeah, my Instagram is one of those things where it's like, wow, like the other thing I used to do on my personal Facebook page is I used to do on my Instagram. I don't do it on this account was, and I haven't done it. I didn't do it today or yesterday. I used to, anytime someone died, I would take a different picture of someone and post a rip to them, but it would always be something that kind of matched. Like I thought about Gene Hackman today, and I thought about getting another Lex Luthor and saying "Rip Lex Luthor." I did it when Gene Hackman died. I've done it a lot, but I did it when Gene Hackman died. But I put Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka. I'm like, "Rip Willy Wonka," and there was someone, and she was like, "That's Johnny Depp. He didn't die." I'm like, "Yeah, Willy Wonka. He died." And she kept going back and forth, and there were people like on my Facebook going, "I can't believe people still fall for this." I'm like, "Me neither." You know, I did recently repost that, you know, how long Whitney Houston has been drug free.
Yeah, that's a funny meme. Those are great memes. I got to tell you, like, talking about memes, memes are probably the greatest thing of the 21st century, in my opinion. I don't know how many memes I share a day, but it's too many probably, and they're all probably over the top. So I don't really. I don't know. I don't know if I've told anybody this. I don't not normally accept new Facebook friends because I don't think a lot of people who don't really know me personally can really handle my Facebook, because my Facebook is so different than my Instagram or definitely my YouTube. So, and you know,
Yeah. Um, I was I was like accepting anyone on my Facebook for the longest time. And I mean, I had other groups well before I was doing YouTube where people I've never met before from other Facebook groups. I have people on there that I've never met. And then, you know, with a lot of the controversy that I was kind of getting wrapped up in with people like, you know, sending me false copyright strikes and stuff like that, I had to stop like accepting Facebook requests from people I don't know. If I've had
yep,
interaction with you, like if you sent me one, I'd accept it because we've had
yeah,
interaction. But a lot of people, I was like, sorry, and I removed a whole bunch of people, especially that were just in the Joe community or in the toy
hmm
community, because I really didn't know. It sounds awful that you're like, are people like spying on me to send it to other people that I don't, you know, that don't like me? But you have to really think about it and be like, all right, you know what? I have too much, and I don't really post too much anymore on Facebook. You know, when I do, it's usually like pictures of my kids or, you know, family photos, something like that. So, but people don't need to see that because there are people that will take that and even try and weaponize it, which is,
for
and
sure.
we're doing YouTube, but the world's a sick place, right?
Yeah, it's deadly waters. That's what I like to refer to it as. It's deadly waters. You're gonna go out in deadly waters when you start getting on the
It
internet. You just
it
are.
is,
You know.
yeah, and you know we all have to make our decisions of what we want to do, and you know it's like, all right, am I willing to show off my family? And everyone knows my daughter
Yep.
now, you know, and we're gonna
Yeah. Well.
do, you know, next month, you know, a Thursday with Punk's daughter, and she's gonna do this, you know.
Oh wow.
Um, but people see her, they know her voice. Um,
Yep.
but again, I'm the one that's leading the question, so I'm not going to get obviously too personal, you know. Like,
You
and
know everything anyway.
yeah, I know everything, but you know, it'll be one of those like she just decided at some point during my streams she can just come on in and interrupt anytime that she wants. When TikTok was shut down for that whopping 14 hours,
I
we were
laughed at
on,
your post on that.
yeah, we were on
Mm.
Oz's stream, and I think there was 10 guys, and she came in and she shut them all down for about 5 minutes and rambled on. And to sit there and watch like 10 guys on stream not say a damn word as she is just ranting is, you know, it's something special. But you know, people, they see her and they're like, you need to do this with her. I think it'd be so much fun, and probably won't go as long as any of the other ones. But it'll just, you know, hopefully it'll just be fun. But I had to think about it, and I even asked, you know, Ed and Matthew and a few other people, like, do you think it's a bad idea? And they're like, you know, some were like, I wouldn't do it. Others were, hey, you know what? She's already part of the show. People know who she is, and you know, we'll be in here to, you know, make sure no one does anything. And I would hope that in other forms that no one would try and take that and do anything. You hope, right? I mean, you hope
Yeah.
that
You know
the
that's
we're good people, but
that's kind of where I'm at, because I have a 6-year-old son. You know, he's our only son, and he likes to come, you know, video bomb me on occasion, right? So I'll be doing a video, and he'll just show up out of nowhere. And unfortunately, he's a little boy, and he just you don't know what he's going to be wearing, if he's going to be married. You don't know anything. And I've had to, like, hey man, I'm like, hey man, if you're going to photo bomb or video bomb dad, make sure you're cool, you know, because and yeah. I try not to have him on video a lot. He does like to come on and do stuff, and we've done stuff together, a few like reviews and stuff. But yeah, it is a fine line between wanting to let them be themselves and also being like protective of them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and 6 and 16 are. I mean, there's a huge age. So at 16, you're like, all right, well, she can kind of make her own decisions. And I said, hey, if you want to do this, but at the same time, they're always our kids, and you're always going to be, on the defense. If someone is going to say something, and you're going to hope that no one would, and you're going to think that, hey, you know what, this is all part of the show. Everything's happened organically, but. We know everything that's going on in the world. Everything is instantaneous with us. Not like when we were kids where there you go, you go hang out in the car, the Kmart toy department. We'll be back in 2 hours when we're done shopping. Yeah. I still don't understand we could spend that much time in a toy department, but we did.
It was the Wild West, man. It was the Wild West. Oh, dude. Yeah.
So let me say hi to everyone, and then we're going to get into your story. So
let's do it.
We have Beardy McBeardish in here. We have Turk Murphy Toy Solutions, GI Bro, who has the best arms in the business. He puts us to shame, but then again, he's actually a professional. Woodman 29. We have Matthew Matson, my first moderator. Joe Fan 84. U.S. Combat Dojo. Action Fig saying, "What's up, Punk Jeff and chat?" This is how we met. We have Menhoza. I love football. I hope you love Michigan football. Christoph, we're not going to say your last name because I will completely ruin it. Stacy Armstrong. Now, I've never seen a Stacy Armstrong, and I have a feeling you know her.
Yep. The guy, Stacy, he's up there in your neck of the woods in Michigan.
Oh, really?
I believe. Okay. I believe so. Yep. He's one of our Joe Bros in the big 1/6 scale world. So
sweet. We have
good dude
Murray Corrigan. Got to be someone that you know.
Canada. Yep.
Canada.
Shout out to Murray in Canada, dude. Great dude.
We're in Canada. I'm sorry, I can't. I live so close to Canada that when I was told they say A after everything, then I was told not to make fun of them because I was a little scrawny runt and I didn't understand what they meant. Well, I learned really quickly.
Murray will definitely do the A if you ask him to.
Fitness,
he'll lean into it.
Mr. Wonderful, who you recently filled in, for. We have a Saldano. I don't highlight anything, so I just scroll through everyone. Checkpoint Alpha. Great to have you here. Yeah. Always breaking news, man. Let's see here. Tony's Figs, who I actually didn't talk to today. Wilder's silly ass. I know who dies. Rolando, Utah Toy Hunter. I feel like it should be Rolando, the Utah Toy Hunter, but Capitan. And I think that's about it right here. Here's Troy Dotson. Viper Scout. Can't forget to say hi to Viper Scout. Gun Bunny Customs. You probably know who Gun Bunny Customs is, don't you?
Yep. I recognize several of these.
There's a lot of amazing customizers. And I'm not a customizer, but I know a lot of these names, and I know a lot of people. They follow me. But I see this stuff pop up on Instagram, and I gotta say, these guys, you guys do a wonderful job, especially you and your flocking. Even though Robo will never have you on if you flock, that's for sure. I don't know if you ever watched Robo. He has a fear of flocking. Robo
really?
don't know. Yeah, he's one of the biggest toy tubers. He can't stand flocking. He
can't stand the texture.
Yeah, so he talked about having one, but he keeps it in a bag. He's like, I won't touch it. He has an actual fear of it. Murray says he's north of Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was told we went to Sarnia Skate Park many years ago, and I was told how they'll say A after everything. But I think what got me more than anything was how they referred, "Hey, you from the States, eh?" And I went, well, "I'm from a state, not all 50 of them."
Well, I do you
And
do you know where the A came from?
I have no idea.
Do you remember SCTV, John Candy, Rick Moranis, where they started
Yes,
on? It was like a competing, yeah. Second City Television had Bob and Doug McKenzie on there, and they eventually had the movie Strange Brew.
yeah. So
And
I
Strange
know
Brew
they
is
do
a
it in
cult
there.
classic. Yeah, I think they were parodying, making fun of Canadians for that. But I think that's,
Yeah,
in my opinion, what made it almost like making Canadians a caricature. You know?
it could be, and I've seen that before. But what's weird is when you live, and I tell everyone, I go, I live closer to Canada than any other state, especially that awful state below me. Um, and it's like
It is awful. It is an awful state.
it is the worst. All right,
Oh
it
yeah.
is the worst.
The farther north you get,
Well,
you
Cincinnati
jump
should
off the
just,
top part of it.
well, let us have Toledo so we can have the Jeep plant. All right, and they can level the rest of it. Cincinnati can become part of Kentucky, and I guess they
Oh,
can have Sandusky, Ohio. And I think
well,
Pennsylvania
I
can
thought
have
you were
that.
talking about Illinois.
No,
I
no,
was gonna
Illinois
say
is
you can have
fine.
part of Illinois if you want.
Hey, I mean, I don't care. I guess it's that state directly. Yeah.
Oh boy, this Buckeye State.
The Buckeyes thing. That's right. um, we already talked. You asked me if I'm a Michigan fan, and like I said, I'm not.
Yep.
I'm not a big college basketball fan, but I'm a huge Michigan football fan. When they won the national championship, which national championships on a Monday, I thought that I'm going to try and watch. I'm going to have the game on. I'm going to do my Monday night show. I go, if you're either going to see me flip out or be super happy. I mean, they were up. Like there was no. I mean, they were never in doubt that they were going to lose that. I could not concentrate. So I'm like, if they ever make it to another national championship on that Monday, I'm not going to do a show because I thought that I actually pulled people on basically to do the show because I was not paying attention. It was just not going to happen. But that's a lot of guys aren't into sports and they don't realize how wrapped up you get into it.
Ooh, yeah, I know. I know. I used to be that guy. I've kind of through a rehab process over the last 10 years, but I used to be pro football and college football. I used to be pretty big into. Yeah. Jeez.
Well, we're going to get into that for sure. So anyway, let me ask Skunk Works. Where does the name come from?
Okay, so that is a great question. So several, probably about, I would say 13 or 14 years ago, when I was getting back into doing G.I. Joe stuff. I'd taken a few years off from collecting and whatnot, and I started to do customization. I really wanted to do customization, but I was just shit at it. And I came up with this idea. I drew it up. I called it G.I. Joe Labs or something like that, and it just never really stuck. And of course, the Skunk Works term comes from was it not McDonnell Douglas, but is it Northrop? One of the aircraft industries has the Skunk Works out there in out west, right, where they develop all the black aircraft, all your top secret aircraft.
Okay.
So it's actually called the Skunk Works facility. So that's where they develop secret stuff. And I just thought Skunk Works sounded like a cool name, so I just kind of stole it from them. I started calling myself Skunk Works G.I. Joe Customs because I was always like, this is top secret stuff. It's just stupid, just a stupid name. And then after a while, it kind of evolved. Skunk Works G.I. Joe Customs just sounded goofy. So I went to Skunk Works for a little while, and then like recently, over the last couple of years, I decided to just change it to Skunk Works Studio, and it's loosely based on the Skunk Works out in I think New Mexico or Nevada. So
okay,
somebody in the chat, Lockheed Martin.
Yeah. Murray came in with
Lockheed Martin,
and Viper Scout. I knew Viper Scout. Like I just had Viper Scout out not too long ago, And somehow we did not discuss how, like, he keeps popping up. I mean, not that he's always in my chat. He knows a lot of military stuff. And we didn't talk about anything about how he knows all this stuff. And now I feel like, or maybe we did talk about it and I forgot about it. But like, I'm like, man, did we miss chatting about this? Because about things like, not to correct me, but to let me know, like, oh, this is what you're talking, like, that blows my mind. I'm like, fuck, how did I miss like discussing this? So
it is interesting when you find out how everybody created their names, you know, because there's a lot of just wild names out there.
This was something that I didn't start asking at first, but there were so many names. Like, where does some? The other thing was, a lot of people started asking me. They were like, "Hey, are you like a punk with toys, like a punk rocker, or are you just like a punk with toys?" Which kind of makes me laugh because I'm like, well, if you listen to the song, you can kind of hear that it's punk, or you can see the shirts. But it was an interesting question, and then just out of nowhere one day, I forget who I asked first, but it was one of those things where, like, why am I not asking? Because, when it's someone that just has a regular name, it's kind of all right. Well, I know where your name came from, but when it's something like Skunk Works, I hope your parents didn't name you Skunk Works.
No,
because either
thank God.
you'd be one badass guy or you got beat up a lot. We got
no.
Nellie Olson jumping here, greeting from Luxembourg. I've never seen Nellie. Great to have you. Is someone that you know?
No.
All right. Well,
maybe might be a fan of the channel. My channel. There's a lot of people that are. My channel's starting to reach more people, which is nice. And I'm starting to get a lot more people from overseas, which is also nice. So that person is a fan of the channel. What's up?
Yeah, it's always,
let us know in the chat.
Yeah, it's always great to see how far of a reach that you're like. I mean, I got guys that are New Zealand and Australia, and it's amazing to get, like, holy shit, like, I'm reaching out. People are watching me in their homes. I don't know why, but thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Like, do you ever feel like weird, like about what they call it, imposter syndrome, when you have something that people find interesting enough to where they're going to take time out of their day to spend with you or video, and I'm one of those people who are like, wow, this is, I post a video every Friday at 6:30 in the morning, and it's always interesting to watch the number of watches go up, and just I sit there and I think, this is really cool that somebody cares enough about me in order to waste time out of their day I shouldn't say waste. That's not correct. To carve time out of their day to like watch something I've made. I mean, that's cool.
It is something that I heard radio hosts talk about before. And they said it's so weird because as a radio host, you tell so much of your life because it is a hearing medium. It's not a visual medium. So you get to know about their families, and these people that call in or maybe go somewhere like where they're doing an event, they feel like they know you. You don't know them, but they feel like they know you. And it is the same thing with this. Now I've got to know a lot of these people, especially doing live streams like this and going to different, conventions and stuff. But it is true. Like, people take this time, they get to know you like at Joe Fest. Some people just want like 5 minutes of their time and of your time. And I'm always going to stop and just spend a little bit of time with them and chat with them for 5 minutes or whatever, because this, especially being a sports fan, but people may not remember the guys that are super nice to them. Oh, but they will remember the people that are dickheads to them. And it's like, I would rather someone not remember the amount of time I gave to them and spent being courteous and just being a decent human being than someone coming back going, yeah, I met Punk at Joe Fest and he's a fucking punk piece of shit. Like, I would much rather, no one say anything about me than spread bad stuff about me. Now, if it's true, I don't
think you catch more. You catch more bees with honey. I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's a great term. That's true. I mean, yeah, you just being a stand up good person it'll take you a long way in life. Even on days you don't want to be.
Being a good person is easy. It doesn't mean you have to like everyone.
Right.
Like,
That's true too.
I,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not one of those people that says, "Oh, we need to like everyone in the community." Like I have
We
to,
all need to hang out.
yeah, I don't need to like everyone on the playground. But we do need to we should get along if possible. And some people might be going, "Really, yeah, well, sometimes I don't get along with people, but I'll say it to your face if I don't." All right, so quickly, let's talk about how old are you?
I am 50 years old. I just turned 50 December 5th, 2024.
So you are, so you are just over a year older than me.
I think we're close to the same age.
I turned 49 on the 29th of December.
Cool. So, December, Sagittarius, man.
I'm a Capricorn.
Oh, you're a Capricorn. Okay.
Yeah.
Does it fit you?
I have no idea because I don't pay attention.
Oh, you don't? I watch that stuff and just to see.
I've had people say that it does. Here's Ed saying something really nice about me. We never say anything nice about you, punk. And Stacey Armstrong saying you guys are babies.
Yeah, we are.
We've heard that before. I've heard that, but normally I'm the one calling other people a baby, and not like as in baby as they're young. All right, like Bobby B is very young. If you know who B's Battleground is, you're like, really? You're like 34, 35? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
All right. So, where did you grow up, and what was your family life like? Did you have brothers, sisters? Were your parents together?
Yep, I grew up in a little town that I live in right now, Paris, Illinois. It's about smack dab in the middle of Illinois on the eastern side, right there, Indiana border, Illinois-Indiana border, just the middle right there. And it's a town of about 8,000 people. I was born in 1974. I have 3 older brothers and 1 older sister. My sister, the oldest, she's 10 years older than me. She'll be 60 this year. I have a brother, Bart, who's 8 years older than me, a brother, Joel, who's 6 years older than me, and a brother, Matt, who's 5 years older than me. And I'm the youngest of all those kids. And I like to tell everybody all the time, especially nowadays when I'm talking to a lot of younger people, I was born in the 70s, I was raised in the 80s, and I grew up in the 90s. Because there's 3 different time periods for me, and all of them I have fantastic, vivid memories of. So, yeah,
Well,
it was a good time.
We might go longer than 3 hours then. All right, so if the closest brother that you had was 5 years, I would assume you probably didn't really have any built-in play friends.
No, I did not have any built-in play friends. That's kind of one of the funny things,
5 years at 50 it isn't huge, but 5 years at 3 and 4, that is huge.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I was little, my brothers wouldn't let me play with any of their toys. Maybe my brother Matt would let me play with his toys every once in a while, but Joel and Bart wouldn't let me play with their stuff. My sister was like almost like a second mom to me, so I would spend a lot of time hanging out with her. And actually, she would let me play with her toys. And one of the toys I loved playing with was her Linda Carter Barbie doll, because I used to watch Wonder Woman every once in a while. Because let's be honest, Linda Carter may be one of the hottest women of the 1970s and early 80s. But I didn't get to play with the toys very much. And I did play a lot by myself, and I learned to play a lot by myself. So we had a pretty big backyard. And I spent just a lot of time out there just creating my own adventures, doing my own stuff, and that's kind of how I became infatuated with 1970s G.I. Joe, because my brother Bart was a big collector of Adventure Team and Big Jim, and he would never let me play with any of those. And I was always obsessed with one figure that he had, and that was, and I have one here, his Eagle Eye G.I. Joe. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Some of you guys are. The moving eyes G.I. Joe. And he had a ton of G.I. Joes and a ton of the play sets. He never let me play with them. And he promised me when he was done playing with them, he would give them all to me. And I can still remember in 1980, him and his best friend Thad taking all those G.I. Joes out back in a field and blowing them apart with firecrackers. And I never got any of them. And I became obsessed with those G.I. Joes after that. So I still am to this day. But yeah, I'd always played by myself. And my brothers did. We always hung out. We fought a lot. Yeah, that was great. I mean, we're all still really close. I mean, my brother Matt's I'm probably closest with him and like just doing stuff with him. But all three of us, or four of us, I guess, super close. Three of us worked together, same place.
Oh wow!
Illinois Department of Transportation. Yeah, two of us are engineers, and my brother Bart is a land surveyor, and he just retired. So, but yeah, man, it was wild. I mean, that's not really I was a bigger family for the 1970s, you know, but not nearly as big as a lot of other families. But today, that's a huge family, right? 5 kids. You don't see that very much anymore.
Oh, I don't want 5 kids. I don't want 5 kids. I
would have another,
kids.
But
yeah, I had 2 kids and a stepdaughter, you know, who I've raised. So, you know, but there was a huge gap between, you know, Emily and my son Andrew, like 9 years. So I understand that huge. And yes, that is Roman in the back making his noise. Right over there, if you can see him. Laying in his beanbag, which Jeff got to see me get up and go get his. All right, so I do think I'm just going to quickly mention. I feel like there are so many stories about those original 12-inch GI Joes either getting blown up with firecrackers or shot up with BB guns. Like I feel like that is one of the reasons why they're worth so much, because of how much kids got the BB guns and firecrackers. Yeah. Now, not what your first not your first toy that you fell in love with, but can you remember like the first toys that you had that you played with? I feel like a lot of people our age, it was Adventure People, the Little People, Hot Wheels. Do you remember like the first toys you actually played with?
I do. The first toy that I can remember actually playing with and sitting there was Mego Batman and Robin. I had a Mego Batman and Robin and a Mego Batmobile. And I had a lot of Mego World's Greatest Superheroes there in the late 70s. I was like 4 or 5, and I played with those things till they fell apart. And I remember my mom had a crochet hook, and she would, when the elastic would break, she would take the crochet hook and she would restring them for me. And under our kitchen sink was a bag of body parts from Mego superheroes that were just worn out that she would use to replace other ones. And my mom would sew my Mego outfits back together. And I wore those toys out. And I remember there was a magazine. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was somebody in the chat. Some of the older guys in the chat might know. Maybe it was like Circle or one of the other magazines. They had you could get a pattern and build your own play sets. I mean, they had one for Star Wars. They had one for I forget what other toy they had, but they had one for Migos. And I always looked at this thing when I was pooping as a kid, you know, because when I was little, you know, you go to the potty and there'd be a stack of Christmas catalogs, comic books, and magazines. And I was through all of them because I knew where everything was. And there was a thing you could build for Mego superheroes. It was like a building. And I always wanted to build that out of cardboard, but never got to.
We have talked about suicide on here. We have talked about fucking Phil Collins. Not fucking Phil Collins, but fucking Phil Collins. We've talked about the military. we have never talked about sitting on the shitter with a stack of magazines next to us. So thank you for bringing up something completely new.
I will tell you that. And I don't know, there's guys in the chat that are close to my age or older. When the Christmas catalogs would come out, that was the shit. I mean, you would come home, if you got home from school and you had a Christmas catalog. The Sears, the JCPenney, the Montgomery Ward catalogs would be there. And that was right there in the bathroom next to the toilet. And that's what, you come home, you'd poop, and you just sit there and look at all that stuff. And I was looking at Christmas catalogs that went back like 5 or 6 years,
Yeah.
I can remember looking at an old catalog where they had the Milton Bradley ROM figure. I don't know if you remember that. So Milton Bradley made a 12-inch ROM. Huh?
Yeah. I don't remember
ROM.
I know what it is because ROM. It just came back out.
Milton Bradley ROM the space, and it was in the back of the catalog, and then all the comic books I'd read had the ad in there, but they hadn't made it. This was like in maybe 1985, maybe, or 84. They hadn't made it forever. I won one of those, and I actually wrote a physical letter to Milton Bradley asking if they had any kind of back stock of those, and they wrote me back. They didn't have it, but I used to write letters to toy companies all the time in the 80s.
And Viper Scott saying, who? Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Who?
Fucking Phil Collins.
So I'm gonna quickly tell the story. I had Gaz on, and somehow Phil Collins came up, and I brought up the fucking Phil Collins, and the whole reason for the fucking Phil Collins thing is that my daughter's the one that's respectful. She doesn't really swear around me, even though I know she does.
Uh-huh.
But we used to listen to Disney music all the time at dinner. And for a while, Phil Collins was the only person that did Disney music. Like Brother Bear. It's like there's like
Tarzan.
And I like Phil Collins, but I'm like, fucking Phil Collins. I'm like, that's the only time you can just swear around me. And so anytime like a Phil Collins song comes on, I'm turning it up, waiting for how long she hears it. Well, the whole story came up, and now it's become like this thing on the channel, the fucking Phil Collins. I'm like, I hope one day it gets back to him. And Phil Collins is like, why is this asshole that does this YouTube show always, saying fucking Phil Collins? But no. All right, so that's what like you first remember. And it's funny that you brought that up because my son, I have this Iron Man over there. It's from the first Iron Man movie. And I've never seen a kid be in love with one toy that much. He still has one. It is in pieces. And it got to the point where I was buying as many as I could get, just because eventually he was wearing them out. And then when his mom and I split up, I had to have one for her house and one for here. But then I had to have a backup. But I also had to have a backup for her house. And every now and then on Facebook, that memory will pop up. And it was me with I took a picture of the bag of parts. Because when it would break, he would come to me and like, the leg broke off. And here I am going through this bag. And replacing the parts on that figure is not easy. It's not like replacing a classified figure. I'll tell you that much. Or a Marvel Legends. This thing, like I'm bending the shit out. So I know I can only imagine what your mom was going through when she's like replacing your stuff. But we do some crazy things for our kids just to shut them up.
100%. 100%. I'm there right now.
U.S. Combat Dojo says, I built a Star Wars Hoth playset of styrofoam with one of those magazines. Styrofoam was amazing. Styrofoam, like, the moment you saw styrofoam, you're like, that is a base. I can fit a guy in there. If a gun had any type of, like, long stock in it, you could always push it right down into it. Styrofoam was
100%.
It still is. I still look at it. I bring some stuff home from work, and then I never do anything with it.
What's wild? What's wild to me is we had all that styrofoam as kids, and then you see like some fucking dude make a life-size Castle Grayskull out of styrofoam in his backyard. I'm like, what the hell, dude? Are you kidding me? Like, freaking nuts.
They're melting it. They're forming it. I'm like, I was just happy to. Hey, look at that little hole right there. The figure can drop right in, and he fits up perfect, especially the Joes.
Do you know where the creativity I think came from in all those people that this new generation, all the cocaine their parents did in the 80s? All that cocaine, all that pure real coke that they all did, they all just had kids, and their kids are like, there was like, oh, it's gonna mess you up. No, I just made a crazy bunch of nutcases that you see on Instagram for like 3 hours, watching them make a giant fortress of fangs out of styrofoam.
No, Viper Scott here says, my daughter left her favorite toy at a restaurant an hour away, and I had to drive back again. I think we talked about this when you were on. But you know what? If it's something that you can't run up to Target and get, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Because when a kid has a meltdown, that's why, like, when I see a kid having a meltdown at Target, I'm not one of those people that, like, my kid will never have that meltdown. Those are people that don't have kids. If you are almost done shopping at a Kroger or whatever, and your kid has a meltdown, you're not putting everything away because you're gonna have to come back. And when a kid has a meltdown, they're babies. They don't. You can't console them. They're 3 years old. They're having a meltdown, and when someone goes, "I would never let my kid act like that," I'm like, you just wait. You just wait. You have one more thing to grab at the grocery store, or you're in line. You're gonna make it.
Do you remember having any meltdowns as a kid over figures at a toy store?
No, because I was very spoiled.
Yeah,
I remember having a meltdown when my mom came home and she didn't grab the figures that I wanted, even though she had no intention of bringing me action figures, G.I. Joe figures home. And boy, did my dad let me have it. Because I said some awful things, and I was a kid.
How old were you?
I must have been around 8 or 9. I remember. Yeah. I mean, this is how I remember writing. I wish I was never born over some fucking action figures. 2 G.I. Joe figures.
It's hilarious. Well, you're a kid.
And my dad, he's like, your mom and I tried so hard to have you. Don't you ever say that. And my mom died when I was 13. It is one. It is like the one thing that I remember that I regret ever doing. And my mom didn't hold a grudge against me, but that's what I remember.
You can't hold grudge against your kids. No.
How could I ever how could I ever say something like that? And of course now she's gone. You can never talk to her again. And you were so mad over a G.I. Joe figure. And to top it off, this is the worst part, is when I told my mom this. She came back and she's like, well, she goes, let me have the action figures. I'll take them back and I'll exchange them for those ones. And I'm like, I already opened them.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. I'm still going to open them.
I remember I was when Walmart had just came to our area, like in their probably early 80s, probably might have been 84 maybe. And I was there with my mom and my dad at this Walmart in Mattoon, Illinois. And I was really into the LJN Dungeons and Dragons figures at the time. And I had just really, I think, had their second wave at this Walmart. And there are 2 figures there that I wanted. And my mom and dad said, no, you're not getting those figures. You don't need those figures. You have plenty of toys at home. And I had a complete meltdown. And I remember my dad actually spanked my ass in the store and took me out to the car and made me sit in the car by myself while they finished shopping. I mean, that was wild back then, but it was great. I mean, I was the last fit I threw, I think, as a kid.
How old were you?
84 would have been close to 10. Maybe 83.
So
83. It was that age.
Well, like Stacey's saying, I never let it happen with me. He whipped my. Now I'm talking about like a 3-year-old, like a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old that have.
Oh yeah.
a 6 or 7 year old, you're absolutely right. I'm talking like when you see a 2 or 3 year old or a 4 year old, they have a meltdown. Like there is no consoling them because
No,
they don't even
they're
know
gonna
why they're
cry.
melting. You know, they don't even know why
Yeah.
they're melting down. All right. So, do you remember like the first toys you fell in love with? And I don't want to say
Absolutely.
collecting because I don't. We didn't collect back then. If you did, you had a horrible childhood. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
What were
absolutely. Well, yeah, I would say, the 70s GI Joes, that I consider that separate from that. I would say the first new toys that I fell in love with, right? So like the first toys that I discovered as a kid, right, that weren't my brothers. Um, I can remember, and this is gonna date us. Um, so I'll split it up into two because there's two toys from my childhood that I think were were super uh, influential on me and still to this day. So the first, and I'm trying to remember which one came first, but I'll go ahead and just say Masters of the Universe, He-Man. Um, I never saw a single He-Man commercial when I was a kid until later on. My mom and dad, for my birthday, that year Masters of the Universe came out, got me um, a He-Man figure. And I got two figures that year. I got He-Man and Skeletor. And I actually fell in love with both of those figures. I loved them. And then I fell in love with that whole Masters of the Universe line. The third figure I got was Zodak, which I love Zodak. I got the Battling Ram. And then they got me Castle Grayskull. And then I started getting the Dragon Walker, the Attack Tread.
that was? Oh
Um,
man, they had some of the coolest electronic
oh my God.
moving vehicles.
Point Dread Talon Fighter. And I created a whole He-Man universe by myself because I played by myself all the time. And what I would do is Castle Grayskull would be all the way up. We had a 2-story house. It was like a bungalow style house, and up in the very upstairs would be Castle Grayskull, and I'd have all these blankets, cascading, and then Castle Grayskull would be at the top where He-Man and the rest of the heroes were, and then down in the basement, my parents' basement was Snake Mountain, and you had the microphone, and you would have to go, and I would play on weekends all day long, Masters of the Universe, and then I collected Masters of the Universe for probably from maybe I think it came out in 82 to about 85. But then right soon after Masters of the Universe, I can remember this vividly. We're watching Saturday morning cartoons and the ad for GI Joe came on, and I don't remember if it was the comic book or for the toys, but it was Stalker with the jump. He had the jetpack and he jumped off the train, and I remembered seeing that, and I go, whoa, what is that? And my brother was like, that's GI Joe, and I'm like, that's not GI Joe. I'm like, GI Joe's, what Bart had, and he's like, no, this must be like a new GI Joe. And then that next day, no shit, we were out at this hardware store that carried toys, and there was an end cap of all the GI Joe Wave 1 Real American Hero figures. And that day, I bought Stalker, or my mom and dad bought me Stalker, and I got the jump pack platform and everything. And after that, I absolutely fell in love with GI Joe. GI Joe and Master of the Universe were probably they were riding shotgun with me from 82 up through at least like 87 or so.
No Star Wars.
We had Star Wars. Star Wars was more my brothers.
Okay.
They were my brother. My brother Matt was a big Star Wars guy. My brother Joel liked it a little bit. My brother Bart didn't mess with it at all because he was a little bit older. We had a lot of Star Wars. I mean, but to me, I was more into the military stuff. Star Wars was okay. I loved Star Wars, but it was just those original O-ring figures. The posability and just the coolness of them was really awesome to me when I was a kid. And then
I will,
He-Man, the muscliness.
I will stand by that. The articulation of the O-ring is what killed the Star Wars toy. And I know a lot of people will say, "Well, the movies ended," but the movies were still there, and those figures would have been cool if they moved more. But like, you look at like the snowtrooper, you couldn't point that big long gun and him not fall over. You had to have a
Yeah.
stand or peg. And let me ask you this: when it came to Star Wars, you said you had a lot of stuff. I did not have an imagination when it came to Star Wars. I had to play Star Wars as the movie. Like Han Solo couldn't go off and do something else. Luke couldn't do something else. Like if you play with the Dagobah system, it was going to be Yoda, Luke, and R2. Like I could not veer off and have something else. Like no, Chewbacca didn't come here. Like sorry, he's not allowed to be here.
Yeah, I think the only really times that I kind of did, like I was like you, that I ventured off from the movies was when Luke and Vader would fight. You'd always imagine those two fighting anywhere. Like I remember my sister read some of the novels that came after the movies. Splinter, do you remember Splinter, the Mind's Eye? The cover of that, it's got Vader standing over Luke and Leia, and I love that cover of that art. I don't know if Ralph Quarry did the cover for that or not, but I always fantasized about what I think the best part about that Star Wars stuff in the early 70s is you didn't know the backstory. So you would read Starlog magazine or Fangora, and there would always be people who were like speculating who these characters and stuff were. But as a kid with the action figures, we'd have battles. Like we would have battles where like we had our snow walkers and our snow speeders, and we set white blankets on the floor with pillows under them to create like a Hoth landscape, and we'd fight like that. But I just never really played a lot of Star Wars. Was almost like a more collectible for us than a toy, or something to play with.
Yeah, and again, I feel like Star Wars came, and again for me, like those movies were just so iconic that the last thing you ever want, at least for me, like I couldn't veer away. Like I could not create my own story because it was already perfect. It was already perfect in my mind. But as I asked you about your favorite, what you fell in love with. I feel like throughout the 80s, most of us, it starts with Star Wars, just because it was what was there. But I feel like the 80s, people, boys, are you normally going to say either G.I. Joe, He-Man, or Transformers? Now, I don't have a lot of Transformers guys in here, but it's usually going to be either He-Man or G.I. Joe. But Transformers was so huge. But a few people have told me like Transformers were way more expensive. And I had a bunch of Transformers, but I never had too many. And maybe that's the reason why, because they were so much more expensive than everything else. Did you ever have any Transformers or anything like that? Or was that...
Yeah, it's interesting. I did have Transformers. I had probably less than 6, maybe. I had Optimus Prime. I think that was the first one I got. I had Jazz. I had the Jeep. I can't remember who it was. I had Grimlock. Was it Grimlock, the dinosaur?
Oh, he's so awesome.
I was real skirmishy with Transformers because they were a little more expensive, and I was into so many other toys that I never really embraced them too much. I didn't really like the articulation of them. And I didn't really like it. Just never really, Transformers never really resonated too much with me. I had GoBots too. But I was never really into the Transformers or anything like that. I had a lot of friends that were, a lot of them. And I would go play at their houses, and I was just like, I don't really want to play Transformers, It's kind of, I'm not going to say that I thought they were lame. They just didn't do a lot for me,
I never had one, but I always loved all the Transformers that had the shoulder cannon. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever, man. I thought the shoulder cannon was like the coolest thing. So like Sideswipe and Sunstreak and not Blaster. Blaster was the one my parents got me. I'm like, I wanted Soundwave. I got the Autobot cassette player. Like, I didn't want this one. He sucks. All right, so it was He-Man, G.I. Joe. Now, as you start to get older and you go into middle school, were you still playing with toys?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, was it something that you hid? Because I talk about this a lot. Ed seems to be the only person that was just like, I don't care, I play with toys, and he probably got beat up more than he wants to admit. But I feel like middle school comes, none of us admit we play with toys, yet we find out we all did. Like years later, we're like, we were all still playing with toys. So were you hiding
100%.
your toys? Okay.
I think there was a point in time. There's probably, from about 82 to like, I would say 87. I played outside with my toys quite a bit, did all that. And I read comic books. I mean, I started reading comic books in 82 too. And then, I think once you hit middle school, and in middle school in the 80s was pretty wild. I didn't even openly talk about anything that I had. And if I had friends that came over, my toys were always put up in a closet. I had some displayed on my shelf. Comic books were always in a long box with the bags and boards. And I did not openly talk about that at all. I always like to tell everybody, me and my collecting was kind of like being gay in the 80s, right? I was always in the closet about my collecting. And man, there's only like maybe a couple of my friends that actually knew that I was a big collector and a big toy guy, because they'd come over. Like I had a friend, Sean, who would come over and he would come up in my room and they'd be like, he's like, oh man, is that like a new G.I. Joe figure? I haven't seen that at all. I'm like, yeah. I still buy them on occasion, but dude, I did that up and all the way through high school. I'd go on toy hunt. When I got my license, I'd still go over to like Terre Haute, Indiana. I'd go to Hills. I go to Toys R Us, and I just, go on toy hunts still. I mean, I did that all the time, just by myself, like I was a rogue hitman.
Hold on one second. Roman, on the left side. Come on, go. The kid is literally sitting right there. Oh my God. My son actually came in, like, he's like, Roman, he's trying to be quiet about it. And he's like running around my legs, like, dude, you want to go out he's calling you. I'm trying not to interrupt. Like, God damn it. Sorry about that. All right, so you're still like hiding it, which
Sure.
Like I said, I mean, I was the same way where I had G.I. Joes, and I'll never forget. It was 8th grade that we started playing, because there was another kid and we started playing G.I. Joes, but we kept it like hidden. And then we were doing this project where we had to make up a store or whatever, and we had fake money. And, at the end, it was like, how much money did you make? How did you split it? And I was sick. I was sick for like 3 days or something. I came back and I was like, I heard that he had done the project without me there because it had to be done. It was like an oral report. And I was like, well, what did he say? And he goes, oh, well, they said that you guys were making these bracelets and this other stuff. And I'm like, well, how do you say we split the money? He said, oh, well, he said that he gave you the G.I. Joe figures because he doesn't play with them. I was like totally embarrassed. Like, I was like totally mortified. And I remember saying something to him, and he was like, well, I don't play with that stuff anyway. So he actually gave me everything. Wow. That's actually how I ended up with, now that I think about it, that's how I ended up with all the, not Tiger Force, but the Python Patrol stuff, because he had it all. That, the Iron Grenade, like, there was stuff that he was buying more stuff because his parents had more money, or, well, at least allowed. I was skateboarding at the time, or getting into that. But he gave it all to me, which I guess now I look back at it and now I know why this stuff's in. I didn't even think about that till just now. I was like, because I remember that, but I'm like, that's right, he gave all that to me because he was like, so anyway, what about in high school? Now you go into high school. What else are you doing? You said you're collecting comics, and I often say a lot of people transition to comics. You said you were already there. Comics are easy to get away with because you can either say I'm reading, or they're easier to hide. Like, much easier to hide than toys. Are you still playing, or at this point you might start collecting? are you
No,
close?
I'm still doing stuff. No, I'm still doing stuff with toys. I'm still like setting guys up. I'm setting, I still had all my O-ring GI Joes then, and I would take a tomahawk and would, set it up and, simulate, missions where you load out your figures and you put them in the tomahawk and you start taking them in to, rescue somebody. I still, because by that time, everybody was out of my house. It was just me. So it was me, my mom, and my dad, and I had the whole upstairs to myself. And it was like, I'd say GI Joe, and then I got into, I got into Toy Biz when Toy Biz first started, because the only superhero figures in the game in the '80s were Superpowers or Secret Wars, and those didn't last very long. And I had both those lines, and I love both of them a lot. But I really longed for those Mego World's Greatest Superhero because it had so many different figures of the line. And I was still doing GI Joe, but I got into Toy Biz, and I remember my sister and her husband were living on a missile base out in Wyoming, and my brother-in-law was in the Air Force, and we drove out there. And on the way back, we stopped at a KB toy store, and I saw the very first wave of the Toy Biz X-Men figures, and I was a huge X-Men fan. Like X-Men was the cat's ass to me in the 1980s. I mean, I loved X-Men. Well, I'll tell you about that here in a second. But and I saw those figures. You had Cyclops, you had Wolverine. I believe there's a Colossus. There was a Storm, and I can't remember who else was in that first wave. Maybe Archangel. And I bought all of them that day. Loved them. They were cool. I mean, they were just real shitty articulation, but they were X-Men superheroes. And you hadn't had an X-Men since Wolverine with the Secret Wars line, and I was huge into that. And I left those toys of the 80s that I loved so much kind of in the dust, and I started to collect a brand new line. That was the Toy Biz, Marvel's figures. And I collected that.
All right, so you said that they had crappy articulation, but did we even realize it? Because in all honesty, other than Transformers that had articulation because they had to, what toy other than GI Joe really had a lot of articulation? And we didn't know that's what it had. We just knew that you could move it around. He-Man had awful articulation. When Turtles came out, they had awful articulation.
Yeah.
Like no one really had good articulation other than like the bigger figures and obviously like the Chips figures, the A-Team, which were all just not say carbon copies of G.I. Joe, but they're based the same. So unless it was an O-ring, everything had the same. Some had like knees that may be bent, but not. We didn't know what articulation was.
Yeah, Hasbro had the market cornered articulation, right? Because they had the O-ring stuff with G.I. Joe. They had Cops. Remember when Cops came out? Those bigger figures.
I do not remember Cops at all.
Really? That was a short-lived, but really cool line.
So when they announced it at Joe Fest, I remember the symbol, like the logo, but I don't remember anything about Cops. When I think about Cops, I think about bad boys, and guys getting taken down without their shirts on. Like that's what I think of Cops. All right.
I can remember the first time I saw the Cops line was at a KB store in the mall. It was really because you're like, wow, they're big figures. They were like probably 7 inches tall, maybe 6-7 inches tall at the time, and they're just big O-ring. They had soft goods. And I remember they kind of struck my eye, kind of going back a little bit from the 90s. It kind of struck my eye, and so did the Visionaries. The Visionaries were an interesting line. I really liked it. I didn't collect it. I had like 2 figures from that. Like, it's weird about the 80s when we're talking about that. And my toy patterns, in between Masters of the Universe, G.I. Joe, and then when I started really getting into Toy Biz, that period of like 80s, it was littered with me just buying 1 or 2 figures from a line and never really becoming as obsessed with it like I did with those other ones I mentioned. Like I really loved the Inhumanoids, and I had a couple of figures from the Inhumanoids, and I used to watch the cartoon. It was really cool. I loved Sectars. I had probably 3 or 4 figures from the Sectars line. I love
I don't remember the Sectars, but I bought this
the
lot.
Bug People.
Yeah, so I bought this lot
Yeah.
years ago because it had some G.I. Joe stuff in it, right? And it has a Sectar. I thought that it was a just some Star Trek figure from like the 80s.
Oh, really?
So he's actually, where the hell do I have? I have him somewhere, and I just have him. He's just sitting there, like just standing. And then as I got more into toys, and the new Sectars came out, I was like, "Holy shit!" I always thought that guy was a Star Trek guy. He'd been sitting around for years. He's just been sitting around for years.
It was a really cool. It was a really cool line, and I loved a lot of source. And you remember Star, Remco made Crystar. They just made a Marvel Legends of it. I had all the Crystar figures. I had all the Dungeons and Dragons LG, and I was huge into Sword and Sorcery. I was such a closet nerd, man. I loved all that. And I played with all of it. Like I had these. My dad would bring home these file boxes from work. They're just the standard cube file box, and each one of those would be filled with action figure lines, and I'd keep them all separated like a dork. And then I would play. Like I would today I think I'm going to play Crystar today. So I'd get all my stuff out and I'd play that for a couple hours. Or now I'm going to do a Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And I did all that all the way through the 80s and by myself. You know, I rarely ever played with anybody. And if I did play with kids, I never had friends over to my house because brothers were just dicks. You know, they would just pick on us. My brothers were probably made fun of me for playing with toys more than anybody else ever did, and which is fun.
Well, they're your family, but I guarantee you, if one of your friends made fun of you, like it didn't last long. Like
no.
Who cares? Leave them alone.
The only kids, the kids in the neighborhood though, we all played together in the neighborhood. There's probably like 3 or 4 kids in my neighborhood. They're all younger than me by about 3 years or so. And we all played together. And what we played the most was either G.I. Joe or we played wrestling with those LJN rubber wrestlers.
The weapons. Those were weapons.
We loved those. Those were one of my favorite action figure lines of all time. We had the system set up.
Yeah, I'm thinking about some
big rubber guys.
Yeah, as home defense. So if anyone breaks into my house, I can just attack them and beat them with those. Because those figures were one of those things where there was nothing sharp on it. It was not going to hurt you playing around with it. But if that thing got chucked at you, or when you were wrestling, someone hit you on the hand too hard, like you might have a cast for the next 6 weeks. Those things are wow.
Me and my two neighbor kids live across the street from me. We're huge into wrestling, and we would bring all of our LJN figures together. And it was when school was out for the summer. We get up, eat breakfast, and when I go over to there, I'd go across the street to their house. I'd take my ring, steel cage, I grabbed food coming out of the pantry, and we had a system. We had a game set up. We had a set of dice, and we wrote down on a piece of paper all the major moves. So, like, if you rolled, say you rolled a 6, whatever. One dice, and if you rolled a 6, it was like a suplex. You know, it's something like that. But a one would be automatic pin, and we'd sit and roll the dice, play the wrestlers for hours.
Wow! Like you had a whole like Dungeons and Dragons style game there.
Yeah, we just played those things. We wore the paint off those things, and it was so fun.
The funniest thing about that is you're rolling dice, so technically you didn't even need the figures. You were rolling dice to see who won.
You know what I mean? Money there too.
Yeah, when you think about it, like you were just rolling dice to see who would win, Yet here you have these. I can't even call them action figures. They were figures. There was nothing action about them.
They're just big rubber monsters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And 3-star jumping in here. All right. So when you get into high school, you said you're still collecting, playing with toys or whatever.
Yep.
What else do you get into? This is the time where you start to maybe girls. For me, it was clearly skateboarding, music. Punk rock is obviously huge. Did you get into sports, music, anything like that?
Everything. I was into a ton of stuff, and a lot of it started like in the late '80s, last part of junior high. I got into skateboarding. I probably skateboarded for 2 years. I remember watching I wouldn't call it a documentary, but I think it might have been an ESPN interview with Tony Hawk, right when he was first starting, and I kind of fell in love with it. Skateboarding was starting to become a really popular thing around everywhere at that time,
Yep.
And I wanted to skateboard really bad. The only skateboards that we had at home were the old '70s plastic, small little,
banana board.
cheapos. Yep. And we learned how to ride those, not really well, but I had friends who had skateboards, and I worked that whole summer. I went and detasseled corn and walked beans so I could get money to buy myself a skateboard. And I got all that money. I got all that money. I saved it. And I think out of the back of Thrasher magazine, I bought myself my first deck. I bought a Steve Caballero Powell Peralta with Dragon on it.
Yep.
Got that. And I took it over to a local bike shop that sold skate parts. And I got myself some, I believe, Gullwing trucks, magnesium trucks, I think. It was Gullwing.
Oh, yeah, the magnesiums.
I did. And I got myself rat bone wheels, the German bearings, and I had that board. And
not many people remember German bearings. Not many people remember German bearings. Yep.
Nope. I was a total dork. I wanted to look like those guys, So I had the goofy haircut. I bought Vision. I had Vision shoes, but I also just wore regular Converses. And we all skated. We'd skate after school, and we did that for a long time. And I remember there's a Lutheran church right behind my mom and dad's house, and it has a large Bedford stone wall about 2.5 feet tall that spans the whole parking lot. And I was at the same time, and I'll tell you how all this went down. At the same time, I was also a junior tennis player. So I toured around to all the tournaments during the summer. My mom would take me to all these tournaments. It was funny, like all the fast food restaurants like Hardee's and McDonald's would sponsor like McDonald's Open, and to be an open tournament for like boys of a certain age or girls. So I played tennis too growing up.
When did you start?
But anyways,
that?
I started playing tennis probably in 1985.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a Kennex racket from Kmart. My brother Matt was a really good tennis player, the one who's 5 years older than me. My brother Bart, he also played, but got a Kennex racket, started hitting it off a brick wall down at a local grade school, and then I just started getting lessons, and I played all the way up through college. And but anyways, I was skateboarding. I was also playing tennis, and I went to ollie up onto the wall to grind on it, and the board came out from under me, and I lost my feet, and I hit my hip and my back on the edge of that wall, and it was a bad bruise. I thought it was really fucked up. I couldn't really walk home. My buddies had to call, and mom had to come over and grab me. And I remember my mom and dad basically sitting me down and going, okay, so you got to make a choice. Do you want to skateboard? Or do you want to play tennis? Because I think one's gonna mess the other one up. I said I'm probably gonna stick with this. So I got that board. I put it in my room forever, and you know what? I sold that fucking board in a garage sale, and I love that skateboard more than anything. And I still look at those on like eBay and shit. Just look at it, find old ones. And it's like it's great because I have great memories of skateboarding. It was so fun. Didn't do it for a long time, but and then at the same time, I started playing tennis, and I played tennis forever,
Okay.
forever. Yeah,
I would
tennis
not
was
have, I would not have seen you as a tennis player. Maybe it's that big beard.
not
Like
I used to look a lot different. I used to have a full head
I
of
know.
hair,
I'm just
baby
like, when I
face.
see you, I don't see
Yep.
tennis player because you think of like much cleaner cut people, and
Nobody does. It's funny. Like I should post a picture one of these days of me when I played tennis because people wouldn't believe it. And another side note that you're gonna laugh. In 1983, I actually took dance lessons because I saw the movie Breaking,
okay.
and I took breakdancing lessons from these guys in Terre Haute called the 13th Street Boys. They came down to our gymnastics center, gave breakdancing lessons for one time, took everybody's money, left, and never saw them again. I tell you, dude, I showed up at that breakdancing lesson with my own fucking cardboard box I'd cut out. Yeah. Parachute pants, and a wind.
I want that picture.
Wild. Oh my god, I wish I still had it.
But
Yeah,
again, like I'll say this: knowing what I know now, as a straight male, I wish I would have done ice skating and dance lessons because guess what? All the guys doing it were gay, and both of them for the most part, which meant all those girls who, let's be honest, you ever look at figure skaters, they have hot bodies. You look at dancers, they have hot bodies. I know a guy. I skate with him from time to time. I didn't know him when we were younger, but he did hair. He traveled all over the world, and he's like, dude. He goes, every guy there is gay. So all these girls that are bored, that are horny, you're the only one that's gonna fuck them. And he's like, look at me, I'm not that good looking. It's like I banged so many
availability. Girls. What do they say? Availability is the best ability.
But I know when I was working at the gymnastics place, there was a guy. He's 20, 22, 23. He did Disney on Ice. Came in, ice skater. He wanted to learn how to do backflips, and he gay. And I said, is it how I should assume? Like this mostly gay? He's like, oh, there's like one straight guy. There's like one straight guy that travels, and he can have any of the girls that he wants because he's the only one.
Man,
and I'm just like, God damn it.
I would have known then,
That's exactly it. If I would have known then, I probably have a bunch of little punks all over the place. Which I'm glad I don't. All right, I don't need all that child support.
Yeah, you don't need that. You wouldn't be able to buy all those figures.
No, that's for sure. Okay, so you are, you're in high school. Are you still playing tennis throughout high school? Do you do other sports or?
Nope. I just played. Well, I ran cross country and played tennis. We didn't have a lot of sports in my town. Football. We had baseball. We had basketball, which I didn't like team sports very much. I played baseball a little bit when I was in grade school, junior high, but I played tennis. I was good at it. I excelled at it. I played at a pretty high level through high school. I ended up getting. High school ended up, my tennis ended up paying for my first 2 years of college because I got a scholarship. Okay. I went to a junior college and I played 2 years on scholarship there, which paid for all my bills and everything before I transferred. But yeah, tennis took me a long way in life, and I used to love playing it a lot. I just got I got really burnt out playing tennis because I played tennis almost all the time like it was a job. Especially high school, it became pretty serious. College, it became almost dreadful in a way. I always like to tell everybody, like, I used to love to play tennis for the fun of it. I used to hate to play it competitively because I just like to go out and hit with my friends, but I hated playing matches just because you I don't know if you've ever been burnt out like at anything, but when you get to a point where you're just like, I hate doing this, I just hate it. And I think I played so much from the time I was young up through high school and then college that I just didn't like it anymore. It's just funny because I can remember the breakover point. It would have been my last year in college. We were down in Corpus Christi, Texas, playing at it was the National Junior College Championship. So you go down and you play a tournament down there, right? If your team was good enough, you qualified to make the tournament, then you go down and yada yada yada. You had seeding brackets and everything. And I won my first 2 rounds of the tournament, and I was playing this kid from Trinidad, and I won the first set 6-1, and then I was up 5-2 in the second set. I choked. I lost it in the tiebreaker. If anybody out there's ever played tennis, I lost it 7-6 in the tiebreaker. And then I panicked. I'm like, shit. I mean, it's down in Corpus Christi. It's hot. We're playing. I was kicking this guy's ass, and he's starting to come back. And in that third set, he ended up beating me 6-1. So I was up 6-1 first set. Up in the second set was going to probably maybe I had match point actually. I had a couple match points, and I choked. And I was like, I hate this, you know. So we got out. We got back from Christie. Tennis season was over. I got out of Lakeland, which is a college I went to, and that summer we kind of played tournaments. And I was playing a tournament over in Terre Haute, Indiana, and I played the first set, and I can remember going out for the second set. I didn't want to play anymore, so I just told the guy I quit, packed all my rackets and shit up, got in my fucking car, drove home. I had hair down to here, so I had long hair. I had long bleached out hair. I had a beard, and I put all my shit in the trunk of my car. I had a Chevy Cavalier, and I went up to the barber shop and had to shave my whole head, and I was done with tennis. And I didn't pick a tennis racket up. That was in 1995, I think. Maybe 1994. I didn't pick a tennis racket up until 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the burnout, and that's why I always like for me, like I love skateboarding, and I was good at skateboarding, you know, when I was younger, and I knew, and I think a lot of it had to do with I understood my limitations. I was never very big into technical tricks. I mean, I could do technical tricks, but I wasn't huge technical. So I lived off my power, my ollie, or whatever. But I would always tell my kids, I'm like, skateboarding is not like anything else. And BMX biking could be this. Because it's like, you go out and skateboard when you want. And if you don't want to, it's no big deal. If you want to skate hard, you skate hard. If you don't feel like it, you don't have to. But you play for a team or a match, whatever, like, this is when I have to be there. And this is when I have to be at my best. And I have to practice on these days. And when you're on a team, I'm going to let people down. Like, I hate that. I hate having to worry about letting people down or I would hate to. I would not have been good with sports because I can be a very competitive person.
Yeah.
So I can fully understand the whole. I've been to the point where something burns you out and you're just like, boom, you're done. So, but you said it took you places though, so that's actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I paid for a lot of stuff. Yeah, yeah. I used to string rackets, and I strung rackets for our team. So, and I would string rackets in the summers. There'd be all sorts of people in our town need rackets strung, and they just bring me their string, and I had a stringer. I'd string everybody's rackets up, and I'd make a lot of money doing that, and it'd pay for whatever, it paid for toys because I was still buying toys then.
So you're still buying toys all throughout this. So
I'm still buying toys for sure.
All right, so let's quickly go from, you graduate high school. Now you made it clear you have not stopped collecting. You are still
No.
Okay. So you get a scholarship from playing tennis to go to a junior college. Yep. All right. Now when you went into college, did you know what you wanted to do, or were you just like, I'm going to college?
Did actually. I did. I at first when I went into college, this is a funny story. Most everybody in my family are engineers of some type, and I was never.
Matthew, where does this come from? Greatest meme. I asked my lab partners to be my pallbearers so they could let me down one more time.
That's hilarious.
Where does that come from? Like,
that's truer than what you know. That meme is fucking true. So what you asked me?
I don't remember. So, did you know what you wanted to do when you went to college? Like, did you have something? Yeah.
Well, at first, I wanted to be a professional tennis player, and that was, an aspiration. I was never gonna be that. But you have these weird dreams that you could be, or you grew up and you could teach tennis.
I dreamt that I was going to be, I was going to be a professional skateboarder. My kids say, "What did you want to do when you grew up?" I want to be a skateboarder. Yeah. Now, if I would have known, and this is kind of offside, if I would have known there was an industry like today, because everything's at your fingertips, right? The internet. But back in
it's way different.
Yeah, in the early 90s, I didn't know like there was photography. There was being team managers, obviously owning your own company. There was more than just being a professional skateboarder. I wish I would have known that because I probably would have ventured off to go to California and try and do something in the industry, and then I would have this toy channel that barely makes any money.
No shit. I remember. Yeah.
But music was the same thing. Like music's the same thing. Like I'm not a musician. I don't sing, but there's so much that you could do in the music industry. I didn't know what there's photographers, but you don't realize like a lot of these people, they don't go to school to be a photographer. They pick up a camera and they start following skateboarders or punk rockers because they can't do that stuff. And then they just happen to have an eye for it. They learn along the way, So
yeah, it's funny when you see that. Like I always think like, do you read books at all? Do you read?
No, I figure if the book isn't good enough to be made into a movie, there's no reason to read it.
That's a good point.
I hate
reading. There's this book called The Alchemist. And if you've never read The Alchemist, it's worth reading because it's kind of along those lines of like it talks about finding your personal legend, like finding in life what you want to do more than anything else. Like I want to be a skateboarder. I want to be a pro tennis player. I want to be a photographer. I want to be a musician. But like it talks about basically the majority of people who have these aspirations and dreams forget about them because life just happens and they end up with all these responsibilities they never win and blah, blah, blah. You have to read the book to see it. But yeah, you're right. It is weird when you see today how easy it is for certain people to just find their calling, and then like you feel like somebody's like, oh, I'm stuck doing what I'm doing. But I kind of used to feel that way at times because when I was younger, so I have these stages. So when I was a little kid, I wanted to be a pilot really bad. That's when Top Gun came out, and we'd go to Omaha, Nebraska to the air show out there when SAC headquarters was still big, and we'd see all the cool planes. I got to see the SR-71 Blackbird, the U-2 spy plane. I got to sit in an F-14 Tomcat. It was great, but I couldn't be a pilot because my eyes weren't great. So that was the first thing I learned. So then I skipped out on that, lost that dream. And then I wanted to be, a tennis player. And then I also wanted to be a comic book artist. And I had those aspirations because I was a terrible student in high school. Like I just never was interested in school. I'm sure there's a lot of people that can relate to that.
I didn't fail any classes. That's what I say.
I didn't either, but
I didn't fail any classes.
Yeah, I didn't either. I got close.
My daughter is all A's,
So,
and that's what she wants. And I'm like, dude, if I got an A or a B, I was like, awesome. I was happy with my C's.
Yeah, I got A's in the classes I liked, and I got C's in the classes that I didn't like. And I still, to this day, blame the teachers, not me, just because they didn't inspire me to be the best version of myself in that class as I could be. And I still, to this day, say that about teachers. If people are teachers out there, don't get offended. But this is just my personal experience. It's funny. I wanted to be an artist, and I also wanted to be a tennis player. But my dad told me something that still to this day sticks with me. It's weird, but he told me, he goes, I've never seen a fat artist, which is weird because I've seen a lot of fat artists. But what he was trying to say back then was they don't make a lot of money because it's a struggle. So I said, all right, that's what he was trying to say. And my dad would always give me this kind of advice like that. Always hilarious advice. But so I didn't know what I wanted to be until my senior year of high school. In my physics class, I had this teacher named Mr. Doris, rest in peace. He's dead now. But I was
I hope you're not saying
rest
in peace. I hope you're not saying rest in peace and he's still alive. Rest in peace. He's still around.
He's dead. He's dead.
Don't wait for him to go anytime.
He's dead. But it was we just took our finals in physics. I think I ended up getting like a C- in the class. And he asked me, he goes, Jeff, what are you going to do next year for college? I said, well, I think I'm going to go to Lakeland. I'm going to do pre-engineering. And you know what he told me? He said, I'm going to give you some advice. Don't waste your parents' money. And that's what he told me. And he walked off. And I thought, this motherfucker has a lot of nerve. Going ahead, he went ahead and wrote my story for me, right? He basically told me, you're not good enough to do that. So don't waste the money. So right then that lit a flame in me. And that's kind of how I am as a person. Like if you tell me I can't do something, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go do that. And I did. And I actually studied, I started actually doing better in school because I started applying myself because I had a goal now to show that dude that I could get my engineering degree, and I did. And I went to Lakeland for the 2 years to play tennis. I stayed an extra semester to make up the credits so I could transfer. And I wrote a letter to the University of Illinois admissions department. And I didn't have the greatest grades in college. I mean, I didn't have a bad GPA, but I didn't have a great one. But I wrote them an essay, and they let me in to the University of Illinois, and I entered civil engineering, which at the time, and when I graduated, it was the number one civil engineering school in the nation, and that's including Berkeley, MIT, and Stanford. So I worked my ass off to get that. And then one of the first things I did when I graduated with my engineering degree is he painted houses in the summer. I saw him at a grocery store, and I let him know. I said, I just wanted to let you know something. I just graduated with my engineering degree from University of Illinois. And he goes, well, good for you. And just walked off. Like, motherfucker.
He
He has, you know what?
Didn't even give you the
You know what, dude? He probably
satisfaction.
nope. And I admire that because he probably had no clue. He probably said that to 100 people, right? He probably said that same line to 100 people. And to me though, yeah, I did prove him wrong, Murray. I did prove him wrong. I did it. I did it. That's probably, I would say, you know, that's one of my greatest, other than my son, having a son whom I love dearly. That's probably my other greatest accomplishment, is putting effort into doing something like that. So, yeah.
But it's those little things, and I think this is what makes people who they are, right? It's something that somebody said to you that you remember. My first job, I worked at Ponderosa, and I didn't work till I was,
oh man,
I think almost 17. All my other friends I did, yeah. They had some really good food, believe it or not. And I remember,
they did, dude. Whew.
I didn't want to go to work, and I told my dad, I'm like, just call in, say that I don't feel well or whatever. And my dad didn't want to, but he called in for me. It was my first job. I go on my next shift. My manager, Cliff, calls me in the office and says, don't you ever do that again. And I went, what? And he said, don't you ever do that again. He goes, don't you ever have your dad call in again for you. And I said, well, I didn't feel good or whatever. And he goes, no. This is your job. It is not his responsibility to call in because you just don't feel good. If you don't want to come into work, that is fine. But you are to do it. You don't have your dad ever do that. And that is something that has rang with me my entire life. I've been at my job for 23
Absolutely.
years. Yeah, I've been with my job for 23 years.
Yeah.
I have called in being sick probably less than 5 times. There are times that I haven't gone in because my ex has a lot of medical issues that I may have, that I would have to have. I'd be gone for a week because she had to have emergency back surgery or something. But as for me being sick, that has resonated with me for my entire life. That, like, nope, you know what? He was absolutely correct. If I'm adult enough to have a job and be responsible what they have me doing, there's no reason why I should have my dad call in, unless if I can't physically get to it. And that's what he. So like hearing something like that could have just been his way of saying, don't waste their money, or, you know, don't waste your parents' money. That could have been him saying, you know what, if you're gonna go do it, don't waste their money. Actually apply yourself. But you took it as he said, fuck you.
Challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think sometimes you find motivation. There's a beauty in the struggle to it. You just find motivation where you can find it. And that's kind of what you have to do sometimes, is just find that motivation. And I tell that to young kids all the time. I know, like, you know, who don't know what they want to do with their lives. I'm like, I just feel sometimes that life will actually show you, you know, but it's your responsibility to read the tea leaves and see what you want to do. Some people flounder for a long time, Bo, but I luckily use that as a tool to accomplish a greater goal. So, you know.
Yeah, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I fell into my job. I lucked into what I've been doing for 23 years. But I was a hard worker. Yeah. So when I went to college and, you know, then I get this like co-oping job doing like some like tool and wire electrician, you know, I'm like, I can make some money here. And then I moved on to another job. And I was just a hard worker. And I always did like blue collar stuff, but like in a white collar environment, you know. And I try and tell my kids, I go, you don't have to go to college, but you need to know what you want to do. Like, you have to have a plan. If you want to go do skill trades, that's fine. You can go do that. But let's have some sort of, and I'm not saying it can't change, because
Yeah.
It can easily change. I mean, you don't want to be doing something the rest of your life that you hate. I
No.
mean, because that's awful.
Absolutely not.
You know,
No.
I may joke about hating my job, but I've been there 23 years. I don't hate it that bad. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. I don't hate mine. I don't hate mine. It's frustrating, but I don't hate it. And you know, it's funny. All through that time, though, I was still collecting toys.
and that's very admirable. Like that you could still do that. So, okay, so you're going through college. You stop playing. You go get a degree. Now,
Yep.
at that time, did you automatically go right into? Because I'm assuming the degree you got in is what is the profession that you're doing right now.
Correct. Yeah. I'm a civil. I have a bachelor in science and civil engineering. I'm a civil engineer. Um, I, I worked all through high school too. I worked at a sewage treatment and a water plant here in our town, all through high school and first part of college, and then I worked for the Illinois Department of Transportation, and I've worked for them since 1998, I believe. Yeah, 1998, and I've done everything there at the department. I started off in design, doing roadway plans, and then I moved out to construction, where I managed construction projects like building bridges, roadway construction. I did that for 5 years or so, and then I came in and was a designer again, and I went from designer to bridge maintenance. So I do bridge repair plans. I've done a lot of stuff.
Bridges scare me. Bridges scare me. I'm not scared of going over bridges, but I watched some documentary and it was like, yeah, pretty much every bridge is not taken care of other than these three. One being the Mackinac Bridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Mackinac Bridge, it was like the second most taken care of. And I forget the other one. This documentary that I'm watching, the guy's like, I watch people drive the Brooklyn Bridge every single day. I refuse to drive it because one day it's just going to collapse. It was not meant to carry those loads, and they have not re-engineered it. And when I have to go there, I drive. There's another way to get to wherever he needs to go. But he's like, I will not. And I'm like, that is scary. And they're like showing like bridges that are. I'm like, that is scary as shit.
It is. There's a lot of we call them structurally deficient bridges, and there's a list. There's a national database. I have a buddy who's a bridge inspector, and like it's the federal government has all these, policies and regulations, and you inspect them every year, and then if the bridge is structurally deficient, then you inspect it every month. And usually, in my experience, if a bridge collapses, it's because somebody cut corners on their inspection.
Turk is saying Illinois bridges are some of the worst in the states.
He's not lying. He's not lying.
I was just happy to know that the Mackinac Bridge, which I've driven over numerous times, is one of the best. And again, it's weird because when my ex and I would go up north, if you don't know, the Mackinac Bridge is what connects the lower peninsula of Michigan to the upper peninsula. And it is, I think, the third longest suspension bridge in the world. And it's made to sway up to 20 feet either way. Now, my ex is extremely, she can drive across a bridge, but she's scared to be a passenger because her mom once ran off a bridge. Not the Mackinac Bridge, but a bridge. Now, she wants to be in the middle. I would always drive on the end. And I'm like, you would rather drive on those steel grates, knowing that this bridge sways, which makes me go, how does that not open enough that just one of those grates can't fall? I've never been on the bridge when it has swayed that much, but just knowing that it is meant to sway 20 feet either or. I believe it's 20 feet. So that's a 40-foot fucking nope. But you drive.
What's even scarier is if you're standing while the car is driving, because when you're standing on the bridge while everything's moving, you can feel the movements of the bridge. And then when you're standing there, if you're like inspecting it, you can hear the creaking, you can see the flexing of the steel, and you can kind of get lost in that on the big bridges.
There,
Yeah,
so
that's what I do.
I get off. One of the expressways that I get off a lot of times on the way home, depending on where I'm finishing up, right? And I get off. Get off, and I'm stuck in the overpass, and it doesn't bother me. But when we were younger, like when we started driving, like 1920, 18, 19, 20, my buddy Derek goes, "I hate this." I went, "What?" He goes, "You can feel this thing swaying," and he's not wrong. And it's not a huge overpass, but you get off and you can feel the thing. You can feel it
Oh yeah.
swaying. And again, this is when we're talking 18, 19. So 30 years ago, he was worried about it. And I don't think they fixed it.
Well,
I don't think they've ever, because I still feel it. And I'm just like, you can feel the thing like bouncing.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Bay City's
Yeah.
where Stacy lives.
So yeah, I know where Bay City is. I've been there. I used to drive a lot for another job that I had all over the state.
Bay City Rollers are from? Isn't that a band in the 70s? Am I right, Stacy? I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's where they're from. I'm trying to think where Bay City.
They might have been from Scotland, aren't they? Or something, maybe not.
Yeah. Well, there's a Sarnia Bridge that's in Port Huron, and there's a skate park in Detroit that they built, and they were building the second bridge in Detroit because Detroit has a tunnel to Canada. Then they have the Ambassador Bridge. They just built a second bridge, and I remember I'm watching them build it, and I was just like, and it's open now, and I just like every time I see it, I'm just like, really, like they're building it on both sides so it connects. What's the chances it's like, oh shit, we're off a foot? Like, that scares
It's happened
me.
before.
Like,
It's yeah. You better hope.
There's a reason why they tell you.
GPS is...
Yeah, when they do your when you do your flooring, you don't start on one side and go to the other side and move it in. You go straight across.
Well, it's a hell of a lot harder to miss that now than it used to be, because with GPS and LiDAR and everything, you should be able to hit that mark.
All right, so you graduate, you get a job, which sounds like you've been in there for, you said 27 years. When do you meet your current wife? How long have you guys been together?
Oh boy, that's a great story. So before we talk about meeting my current wife, we better talk about my ex-wife,
Okay.
because that kind of ties into my G.I. Joe story.
Do you mind me asking how many kids you have?
I just have one.
Just one.
I just have one. Just one. Yep. So I got out of college and I started working, and I worked for a few years, and then I met my first wife in 2004. And it was kind of like one of those bottle rocket relationships where it just went really quick. I was at that time, I was still collecting toys, still collecting comic books, doing all that stuff. Then I met my first wife, and it was a Trojan horse incident, right? So this person loves your hobbies, thinks your hobbies are cool, blah, 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 blah. And then after I got married in 2006, then the hobbies weren't so cool. Like, why are we buying toys still? Or why are we buying comics? And, why aren't we not doing this? And why are we not doing that? And I was like, it was weird because I was happy doing all the stuff I was doing. She just didn't want me to do that anymore. So, like a true foolish male, I quit doing all that stuff. I quit collecting everything. I quit hanging out with the G.I. Joe group I hung out with. I used to hang out with these guys, the Central Illinois G.I. Joe Collectors Club. They were some really cool dudes. One guy was named Mark Owens, and he ran this website called Patches of Pride. It was really popular with the 1/6 scale community. And I stopped buying everything. And I I sold all my G.I. Joe O-ring figures, my whole collection. I sold all my Robotech stuff. I sold a ton of my childhood toys, because I let somebody talk me into basically becoming somebody who I really wasn't. So that lasted, I would say, 3 years. And and then it finally it went south. It just wasn't going to work out. Anybody who's ever been divorced or had a bad relationship, everybody's story's sort of similar in a way, but we both it didn't work out, So we got divorced in 2010. And I remember after I got divorced, and I think anybody who's ever been, it wasn't a bad divorce or anything. We didn't have any kids, it was kind of like a high school breakup in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
Other than the financial hit, I was like lost. Like I had like no identity anymore. Like a lot of my friends who I was really good friends with, I'd alienated. I didn't have any interests because I just become like somebody who I became somebody else. So one of the first things I started doing is I created a Facebook account. I never had Facebook. And I got on there and I started discovering all the G.I. Joe groups. And I thought, oh man, I remember G.I. Joe. And I remember all my G.I. Joe stuff I had. And I still had a lot of my 12-inch stuff. It was at my mom and dad's, stored up in my room.
Why
I had a ton of stuff.
Why would you sell your O-ring stuff and not your 12-inch stuff? Is there a reason? Was it just accessibility that you had that closer?
It was at my house. It was at the house, okay. and we were doing some work to the house, and she was like, well, maybe you could sell some of your stuff to pay for this. And I said, I don't know. I don't really want to do that. And she's like, well, I don't understand why this is just sitting here not doing anything. You could sell it and use that money for whatever she wanted to use it for, right? Which is, I think it was like paint, curtains, stupid shit. So I sold. That's
how we have jobs, so we can buy the curtains and stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's when at the time, on TV, everybody had those antique road shows and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You have somebody who gets on eBay and they look around, they see what your toys are worth, and they start getting ideas, But a lot of my 12-inch stuff was still at my mom and dad's.
Okay.
All my classic collection, my vintage stuff. I would never sell my vintage stuff, but I did sell. I did sell my O-rings. I had all my robots. I had a decent amount of Exo Squad stuff I sold. Yeah, I didn't get any of that back, but so I started collecting again in 2010, 2011. And I really got into customizing. I started to create Skunk Works in a way in my head. I met a lot of cool people on the Facebook forums, like Ed. At the time, he was going by Lyle. I met a lot of those guys in those Facebook groups, and I started to kind of have fun with the toy stuff again, And that's kind of like got me out. I was one of the things that got me out of the funk. I started to do toy collecting again. I started to do comic books again. And I started, I got into beer, cigars. I started running marathons. I started doing all sorts of wild shit.
Cigars, running marathons. Those normally
doing everything. No, I was doing everything. I was just basically like I guess I'm doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do, And
I understand.
And I was this beautiful horse running free, running hard. And then this girl, she saw me out in the field running. She's like, that horse is running too hard. So she had lassoed me up. No, I met my wife, my current wife. She was she was going to college. She's a waitress at our local country club. And at the time I didn't have the beard. I had a handlebar mustache because I was out in Colorado with my best friend, and we were at a beer festival, and I saw these dudes with the handlebar mustaches.
I gotta stop you right now because we just watched Sonic 3 this weekend.
Oh, it's a great movie. Great movie.
And the moment you said the handlebar mustache, I'm looking at you going, oh my gosh.
Eggman.
All I can see is like that's you. Like
it is.
If you and I don't know what you look like without the beard, but I'm just like, holy shit, dude. Like
yeah. Dude. Well, I'll send you a picture of me with the mustache. But my son actually refers to me as Eggman. Sonic's his favorite character. So but anyways,
really?
Yeah. So I had this handlebar mustache. I hadn't grown it yet. I saw these two guys with the handlebar mustache, and I bet my buddy a case of beer I could grow a handlebar mustache better than those two guys. So I did, and I grew a handlebar mustache, and it was amazing. So I had that, and that's how I met my wife. She kept calling me Handlebar, and then she asked me out. I remember the first movie we went to. She thought I was a sci-fi nerd, which I was. But she thought I liked the Alien franchise, so she asked me to go see Alien Prometheus. I think, and I'm like, I don't fucking hate the fucking Alien movies, you know. But we went and saw it, and oh yeah, she's. But the thing is about she's 15 years younger than me, right?
Well, so I was gonna ask, because when she said she was going to high school, she was going to college.
Oh yeah,
she's working her way through college. I was like, it sounds like she's a little bit younger, but
she's
also,
15.
Well, the fact that you've already said you have a 6-year-old son and you're 50, and kids are for young people. Lot. Kids are for young people. Too late to tell you.
That's why I stay in good shape. But no, I met her, and we started dating in 2012, and then we have been together since then. And I think what kind of was the seal the deal is like we both were like, I was like, hey, do you want to have kids? She's like, yeah, I do want to have kids. I said, I do too. So let's do it. So we got married. We went to Boulder, Colorado, got married, and back in.
Sex. You don't have to bring up kids to have sex. You can.
True. I always wanted a kid though. I always wanted kids.
The way you made it sound was like, this is how I tricked her into having sex with me. Do you want to have kids? All right, well,
she probably tricked me. No. Yeah, no shit. No, but she loves my hobby. She loves that I do all this.
So are you just open with her about like, hey, I
everything
collect toys?
She knows everything.
Right from the day. She knew right from the beginning.
Day one. I used to have an office upstairs in my house. Now it's my son's playroom. But in my office, when you would go in there, I would have all my stuff displayed.
Okay.
Like I'd rotate it, not all my stuff, because I have a ton. I have a shameful amount of stuff, but I would have it all displayed there. And, when we first started dating, she'd come over to my house. I'd be in my office drinking a beer, unpacking something from the G.I. Joe Collector Club that I just got. Or she came over one day and I was putting together a Toynami Voltron, figure. And, I'm like, she's like, what's that? I'm like, this is fucking Voltron. She's like, who's Voltron? I'm like, I'm going to tell you who Voltron is. I said, Voltron was in 1985 the one toy I wanted but I never got. So now I'm obsessed with Voltron because so I bought a bunch of Voltrons. That's a great story, by the way.
I tell everyone, like, I don't remember Voltron. And I feel like I'm missing out because so many people love Voltron.
Dude.
I remember finding out about Voltron about the same time that Power Rangers, because I was like, it's just Voltron, and then I kind of remembered Voltron, but I don't know if it wasn't aired where I lived or whatever. But there's very few things that I look back at like I feel like I missed out on. But Voltron's one I feel like I missed out on, just because so many people love it, and I'm like, it seems awesome.
Dude, Voltron, when that came out, I used to come home after school and watch it, and I loved it. And then, Matchbox got the license to bring it over and do those, do the 5 lions figure, go lion figure. And I wanted that so bad. So this is one of the funniest things about my childhood. I made a deal with my dad. My dad told me, if you get honor roll this last quarter at school, I'll buy you that Voltron. Because I wasn't a great student. Went to Catholic school. I just wasn't interested. And so I said, okay, I'll do that. So I got honor roll. So I remember it was the week after school got out. We drove over to the mall to Walgreens, which had the Voltrons, and we went to the toy aisle, and there it was. And my dad's like, where's it at? And it was my dad and my brother Matt. My mom stayed home. And I said, here it is. I said, this is the black lion. I said, this is the blue and the red lion, and this is the yellow, or the blue and the green lion. This is the yellow and the blue lion. He goes, okay, which one's Voltron? He goes, I said, they're all Voltron. So you have to buy all these to form it. And he's like, they were like, and this is like 85. I believe the black lion was like 25. The green and the red were like 25 together. And the others were.
You said Walgreens, right?
It was Walgreens. Yeah, it was a Walgreens back then.
We didn't have Walgreens, but we had like Perry Drugs and and they were always regional. Way more expensive too.
Yeah,
than
they
like
were the
Toys
only
R
people. Toys R Us. We didn't have a Toys R Us at that time in Terre Haute. It hadn't come there yet.
Yeah,
and
so
KB
that sticker shock is going to be even more to your dad
at Walgreens. Yeah, so it was like going to be close to $100. And my dad's like, I can't buy this for you. He's like, that's crazy. No, I can't. I'm not going to buy this. And I'm like, we had a deal. And he's like, I'm sorry, I can't. You're going to have to pick one of the lions. And I picked the fucking black lion. And I had that lion forever. And I'm like, how am I ever going to form Voltron? He's like, well, maybe you can get the others for Christmas. And that Christmas, didn't get the black lion. So fast forward, my mom and dad just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary in January. And my sister organized a big party for him. And my sister had these cards passed around, and you're supposed to write on these cards one thing you remember about your mom and dad. And I wrote that Voltron story. I said, yeah, I fucking remember that. I remember wanting that Voltron and not getting it. And you know what's funny, dude?
Wait, please tell me the rest of your. I hope the rest of like your brothers and sister wrote like really happy stories, and you wrote. This,
they did. I was the only one like petty.
Fuck you! I didn't get Voltron, and you said I could.
Yeah, I was petty. It's a 60th wedding anniversary. I mean, what are you gonna? I mean, that's a long time. But so you know what the first thing,
right?
Yeah. Do you know what the first thing I bought when I graduated from college was? Matchbox Voltron. Yeah, my dad laughs at that now because Ed's a dick move, Jeff. No, my parents laughed at that because I bring that up every year. I'm like, hey, it's always the 5 Lions Voltron story. It's great.
But it's something that it's something that has helped mold you to who you are. I mean, it sounds it sounds stupid, but you remember that to a point that you went out and you bought it when you could.
Yeah. I that's how much I love toys. You know, like I always turn all my toy trauma into obsessions.
3-star says, "Bring it up. You should start taking it to Thanksgiving, and like you should make there be a seat for him."
Oh man, I love it.
I mean, I would. I mean, that's the shit I would do. I do that.
Oh man, but you got to know my family. Like we are all we have a really good sense of humor. We all give each other a lot of shit. You know.
I think that's the best. I mean, I don't know. Like that's how we are. You know, for the most part. Again, you realize who can and can't take it. You know,
Yeah.
My ex has a good she has a good sense to dish it out, but when it would get thrown at her, like her brother would say shit to her, and then I remember we'd be driving home and be like, "You didn't even stick up for me." I'm like, and you were laughing at what he said. I was like, I thought it was funny. I don't know what, like, what do you want me to say? Like, he ripped on you after you made jokes towards him, and then you got mad. And what was I supposed to do? I thought what he said was funny, and I agreed with him. You know, like, can't be mad at me. I didn't say it. But yeah,
Yeah.
some families, you know, they're just straight laced and they can't talk like that about, you know, with each other. And then other ones are like, yeah, if I wouldn't have said it, my dad would have been pissed off at me.
Yeah. I think
You
it's one
know?
of the things my wife, I mean, I don't know if she had to get adjusted to it, but like her family's that they're all like really, really nice and considerate and just, they're really nice. And we're basically, I would say heathens, but we're kind of heathens in a way where we know each other so well that we say terrible things to each other and when we laugh about it. And then when you get around people who don't know your family's sense of humor, things you say to each other, and then they hear you talking back and forth, they're very confused. They're like, whoa, you know?
When you see two families come together, like you see the movies where they do it where like one family is like that and the other family is like super conservative and, you know, straight laced and like just super nice to each other. It's a movie, but it's like, yep, I've been in that.
This is real life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have other families where they come together and they're just all a bunch of shit bags to each other. It's like,
oh, dude, that was my first wife's family. I mean, I've went from, you know, dirtbag, bad people to like awesome, saintly people, and it's like these two different worlds, and it's just like I often lay and sometimes and think about just all my experiences and that in like the realm of like family and stuff, and it's just like I fucking start laughing. I'm like, Jesus, you know, I should write a book.
So your current wife, I shouldn't say your current wife, but your wife here, does she collect anything? Like, does she have any hobbies that she collects, or is she just like, it's super cool that you do this?
She wants to. She's super introverted, but she collects, I would say, coffee mugs.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the artist Turkey Merc? See him on Instagram? Turkey Merc.
I know Turkey Merc. I know Turkey Murphy Toy Story.
Look up Turkey Merc. Look up Turkey Merc on Instagram.
Okay.
So he makes a lot of mugs. So he made this. This is my espresso cup.
Oh, that is creepy.
I've bought her a couple of those mugs, but I'd say coffee mugs maybe. But she doesn't collect much. She loves to read. She just likes watching us collect. I mean, she used to when she used to do a before she quit her job and we had our son. She did hearing screenings for newborn babies. So we would test new babies to see if their hearing worked, and she would always pick my comic books up for me on the way back home. It's fucking awesome. She's a really good person.
See, great mom. Like my ex, she doesn't have hobbies, and I wasn't really collecting. When we got together, like I still had my GI Joes because a lot of my GI Joe stuff, the O-ring stuff, is my childhood stuff. So you know, like we weren't, and I wasn't really collecting, but I would pick stuff up from here and there, and I always went to the toy section. I'd still buy stuff. She doesn't understand because she had such a bad childhood. You know, her
Mm.
her dad showed up one day. Um, somehow, when her mom and dad got divorced, he got custody of the three oldest kids. But my ex, she had to live with her mom, who was an awful person. I've never met her in my entire life. She just recently died. Uh, Again, we were together for 14 years, and we've known each other since 2001. I never met her. That's how much of an awful person she is. And her dad showed up, said, "Get your stuff. We're leaving." Just you're leaving, right? Clothes on her back. Didn't really get to pack. No toys or nothing. So she didn't really have anything. So she has like no connection. And she's like, "I don't understand why you care about this stuff." I'm like, "I don't either, but I do. I don't know why I love GI Joe. I do. I can't tell you why I love skateboarding, but I do." And I would say it's one of those things that definitely came between us, just because she doesn't understand it, and she didn't want to. Now she kind of understands it. She understands, like, you do this whole thing, and like this is who you are. So she's more accepting of it, and she even like tries to tell the kids, like, "Hey, your dad's doing something, and he doesn't go out to the bars, he doesn't drink." So when they were a little bit younger, now they just. I think my son hates it after a while. It's like, "Oh, you're always on that thing." Sorry, you're on your video game, so it doesn't matter. But she didn't understand it, and I think, and I've said, like, if I meet someone again, they don't have to understand why I like this, why I skateboard. They just have to accept that it makes me happy, and that's
Yeah,
what makes.
that's a good point.
Just if they do something that I may not understand, like if they like soccer, as long as it makes you happy, just don't make me watch soccer.
I think my wife saw my passion for it, because I mean, I could pull off a toy off the shelf and tell her a story about that toy, like when I bought it, why I bought it, what it means to me. Maybe it's a memory. I look at almost all my toys, almost all of them, not all of them, but almost all of them, as a memory time capsule. Like, I often tell people, I have this display of action figures, new and vintage, on my desk at work, and I call it my pantheon of heroes. And I can pull a single figure off that shelf, and I can tell somebody a story about that figure. Like, I can pull off my Takara Microman Pharoid. It was in Micronauts. It was called the Pharoid, sold here. And I can tell you about my brother Bart had that figure. I loved that figure. It was the coolest thing in the world. He would never let me play with it. And then one day I found it. He had just thrown it in a wicker bird cage my mom had somewhere. And I got it, took it, hid it, never showed it to him again. I kept it forever till I broke it. And I just have stories about almost all my toys that I remember from my childhood. All of them.
So when, like I said, I still had my G.I. Joe stuff, and every now and then I would just kind of pull out the G.I. Joe stuff in the bin, and I'd go through it, and we'd be sitting there watching TV, and I'd start going through the figures, and I don't know anymore, because I've completed so many and I've replaced so many, but I would pull out like a specific figure, and I'm putting stuff together, and she's like, "How do you know what you have with that?" I go, "I know everything that's in here." And I pull out Spirit. I have Freedom, but his legs are broken, and then I have his backpack, but I don't have his original gun. It's from the accessory pack. Boom. Oh, I have this figure, but I don't have his original gun. I only have the accessory pack. Boom. Oh, this one is complete. Oh, here's Gung Ho. I always use, and she's like, "How do you know that?" She's like, "If I tell you something, you can't remember it." I'm like, "I don't know, but I can tell you that I remember all of this stuff." And it's still,
Yeah, it means
doesn't
something.
help. Yeah, it doesn't help with the G.I. Joe stuff, because I find myself, I don't do it so much anymore, because I'm not, now if I'm trying to complete something with the O-ring, I go and look. But I would be somewhere, I'm like, "Oh my God, I need his gun." And there were a few times, or I need this figure, and I'd buy it, and then I'd get home, and I'd be like, God damn it, I already replaced this. So that you end up with an abundance.
I do that a lot.
You know,
I do that a lot.
I'm pretty good with the classified. I know with the classified because that's what I'm, dealing with more than anything right now. But she didn't understand it, and I'm just like, well, it's just, I don't know. It meant so much to me as a kid. Now it's different because I started completing everything. So you forget everything that you had, or forget what you've completed. But I'll look at a figure and I still take me back to, 10, 15 years ago with what I had then. Oh, Footloose. Yeah, I don't have him complete. Well, I purchased a complete one. So I do have him complete now. But when I first see it, I'm like, oh, shit. I only have his gun. I need to get his backpack and his helmet. And then you get back and you're like, oh, glad I didn't buy that. I'm glad I didn't buy that today.
Yeah.
So she's all on board. Now, how does your son? How is your son with everything? Now, he's 6. So he got ever.
He loves everything. He's known toys ever since he was a little kid. He's been with me looking at my toys. He sees all the stuff that I have, all my collectibles. He knows everything. He has his own stuff. It's interesting to watch him. It's interesting to watch his development and what he's into because he loves Shogun Warriors, Jumbo Machiners. Loves them. I mean, that's his prized possession. He's, for some reason, when he was little, I'd say 2, I restored 2 of them for him. Like when he got older, maybe he'd want them. I never had Shogun Warriors when I was a kid. I had some friends that did. Never really was into them. Now we're super into them. When he was 2, he just loved the fact that it was close to his size. And it was like his buddy. Mazinger Z was his buddy. And he would just have his robot with him all the time. And he's never lost sight of that. He loves Shogun Warriors. He likes G.I. Joe quite a bit. He likes to take G.I. Joe out to the woods and do stuff. He's just now starting to discover Marvel Legends. He loves Iron Man. I fucking hate Iron Man. And
I heard your story.
Fucking hate Iron Man. I'll tell that story again.
Okay. I'm going to say this. I'm sitting here on Tuesday and I'm listening to you, and you are telling Ed how you fucking hate, and I'm sitting here going, I told you, my son,
Iron Man.
I've never seen
you
a
told me what you said.
Yeah, I've never seen a kid love a toy, not an action figure line, a toy more than Iron Man. When he was in preschool, he's 4 years old, right? He watched Iron Man so much that his teacher had never seen the movie. He would imitate the beginning of the beginning of the DVD where he spun around, but he would imitate the movie. And one day, his mom goes to pick him up, and she's talking to the teacher because it's a preschool, so it's pretty, you really get to know everyone. And Susan is talking to his teacher, and the teacher's like, she goes, I finally saw Iron Man this weekend, and I thought I had already seen it. He has acted out every single scene of being Iron Man that I'm watching it, and I'm thinking that I've already seen it, and I'd never seen it before. So here you're telling the story, and I'm almost like, fuck you. I'm going to go find someone else right now to come on.
But then you heard my story, and then you started laughing.
So tell your story, because I think it's pretty comical.
So I literally fucking, probably not as much as I used to, hate Iron Man. And it's not for the reason everybody thinks. Like, it's not because of Robert Downey Jr. or the Marvel Cinematic Universe ruining anything or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. So, like I told Ed, I'm a huge comic book nerd. I've been a comic book fan since 1982. My sister bought the first comic she got me was X-Men number 169. I learned how to read with comics. That's how I learned how to reading comic books. I read Iron Man all the way up through the 80s and 90s. Loved Tony Stark. It was always cool, And then, early 2000s, and we get the Winter Soldier storyline, which I think is still one of the best comic book storylines in the history of comics, and I'll argue that with anybody. Not the fucking movie, the actual comic by Ed Brubaker, Steve Epting, and Mike Perkins, amazing. Then after that, you get the death of Captain. Yeah, the movie's good. Yeah. I just like the comics. I'm one of those guys I like the comic story better, but then the death of Captain America was okay. Then Marvel Civil War comes. That comic series, that crossover, and Tony Stark turns into a fucking government fucking bootlicker. He wants to put everybody in prison, register your fucking superhero powers. I'm like, you know what? Fuck Iron Man and fuck Tony Stark. I was mad about this guy's a fucking asshole. And then him and fucking Hank Pym and Reed Richards fucking dorks make that fucking that robot Thor or whatever that kills a bunch of people, and then they try to pass it off as the real Thor, and then real Thor comes back, and the minute he beat Tony Stark's ass for being such a bootlicking piece of shit, backstabbing traitor, I love that issue. I loved it. I fucking hated Tony Stark. That comic made me fucking hate him. And that was my honestly, that was my ceiling for Marvel Comics. I don't think I ever really liked Marvel Comics ever again. After all stories started to suck, all the writers started to suck. After they topped out with Civil War. That was a great storyline, and fuck Tony Stark. Fuck Iron Man. Fucking traitor. So I kept thinking, fucking traitor. Fucking traitor.
But okay, so there are people. No, go on. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, so I hated Iron Man, and it's so funny because my son just loves Iron Man. He loves all the different suits of armor. So I'm now buying these Marvel Legends figures of all these different armors, and he's just like, this is so cool. Dad, isn't Iron Man the best? And I'm like, yeah, he's pretty cool. Inside, I'm like, he's a fucking traitor, Ollie. He's a fucking traitor. I'm going to tell you when you get older how much of a traitor he was in the comics. He'll never get that back from me.
All right. So I will say it again. I have never liked Spirit because in the cartoon, Spirit? G.I. Joe.
Yeah, okay.
Because there's no fucking way Spirit could beat Storm Shadow. Yet he pretty much just wipes him. Fuck you and your stupid cartoon. All right. So people are like, wow, I fuck him, dude. Fuck him because
yeah, I can see that.
Storm Shadow beat a Hiss tank, I'm sorry, just a tank, right? He took a tank down with his ninja moves. He couldn't beat fucking Spirit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Spirit figure is awesome. It is an awesome classified figure. But
I forgot. He beat him in the cartoon, didn't he? Was it the cartoon that he fought him and beat him?
Yes, yeah. Oh my god, fuck in the water and shit. Like, fuck you, dude. Like, fuck you. Same with
Quick Kick. I mean, honestly, those cartoons they're pretty Quick Kick, Bruce Lee light. So I used to call him.
Oh yeah, Quick. I tell everyone the best thing Quick Kick ever did was get his ass beat by Storm Shadow. Like that issue where Storm Shadow breaks into the pit to talk to Snake Eyes, and they're there to defend him, and he just pretty much laughs at Quick Kick, knocks his ass out. Catches the bolt from Scarlet, and he's basically like, I'm here to talk with him. You guys need to just get the fuck out of my way. I'm like, hell yeah, you tell fucking.
I'm a ninja. I'm a ninja. You guys are wearing spandex.
Exactly. So Stacy says, so I'm confused. You don't love Iron Man?
Yeah. No. I'm growing to like him a little. We're in therapy together, I guess you could say. I do like the figures. The Marvel Legends figures are really cool. I will say.
Yeah.
Um,
And Three Star says he whooped Storm Shadow's ass over the Weather Dominator fragment.
well, he was possessed by the spirit.
Fuck.
But so my son, so speaking of him, he has made me like something that I never thought I would have liked. I never play video games. I a little bit. I had Nintendo, and that was it. I didn't play a lot of video games. He loves Sonic the Hedgehog, and I don't know much about Sonic other than he's a Sega character and stuff. And he absolutely loves Sonic. And I've watched all 3 of those movies, and I love those movies. And the action figures are cool, other than having the heaviest fucking head I've ever seen. You can't stand them up. But he loves Sonic, and I love Sonic now too. And we spend every night asking ChatGPT on my phone before bed, Dad, who would win a battle between Hypersonic and this character? And then we'll just go through the whole, and I'll tell him who I think is going to win, and he tells me who he thinks going to win, and it's hilarious. It's great.
I think that there are those times that, like you said, your kids fall in love with something, and you find yourself just because we love something and our kids love it because of us. But when it goes the other way, it's, my daughter, her first favorite princess was Tiana. Princess and the Frog.
Oh,
and
okay.
It's a fun movie. I enjoy the movie. But the first time that she got to go to Disney World with us, she was very little. There was a second time that we went. She was basically too little, but it was perfect for my son. And if you've ever been to Disney World or just Universal and all that whole, it isn't a very expensive trip. But the picture that I got with her meeting Tiana was like, boom. Like, I will love Tiana forever for that. Because it's just like, she made this world for this little girl. And the girl that was playing Tiana, she sounded like her. She looked, it was amazing. The second time we saw Tiana, she was a little overweight. Didn't sound as much like Tiana, but it's disappointing because the first one was pulled right out of that, right out of that movie. So when you get one of those things where you see something that your kids love and you've kind of fallen in love with it, it makes you it changes. It's different,
Yeah. Was your son? Do you know who Trevor Henderson is? Henderson monsters like Siren Head. Yeah, don't go down that wormhole. My son loves monsters, and he loves these Trevor Henderson monsters. Some of you guys in the chat might know who they are. I did not know who they were, and that's one of the obsessions that I could probably do without. But because they're so goofy, and just but he loves those things, man. Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing that you'll start to experience, because I'm assuming you're not having any more kids.
No.
This is one of the things you'll start to experience, because my youngest is 16. You'll start to miss those kid TV shows that you hate watching, but then you start going, I kind of miss that. Have you gotten to the point where you're watching one of these kid shows that he wants to watch, and then 45 minutes later you realize he's walked away and you're still watching the episodes?
Yeah. We did that a lot when he was a little younger. Storybots on Netflix. I fucking watched that whole damn series twice in a week maybe. Or Super Simple Songs, all these ones. There's a kids learning tube. There's a vegetable song that I can still hear in my head, and it's such a
VeggieTales?
It's not VeggieTales. It's by Kids Learning Tube, and it's a vegetable song, and it is so catchy. Like I was sitting there at my desk at work forever just singing it to myself. Look that shit up one of these days if you guys want something you can't get out of your head.
No, I don't need that. I get more than stuff. A lot of voices up in my head I can't get out.
I have music Tourette's.
Do you listen to Jim Rome?
No,
Yeah.
The sports guy?
Yeah. He always talks about Jungle Tourette's. You know, his show is called The Jungle, whatever. He always talks about Jungle Tourette's. And there are certain things that like you'll say it like that. One of the things is that one of the callers called in, and they were doing a thing, and he was talking about his producer Andrew Grew. He's like, Andrew. Well, my son's name is Andrew. I can't tell you how many times in my head, or even like when I call him or say, that's how I say his name. And he's like, that's Jungle Tourette's. Like, fuck, dude, it's awful. Like the fact
that's
that it's
true. That happens.
Yeah.
I do that too.
Yeah. But so your music Tourette's.
Yeah, I get music. I get a song stuck in my head, and I'll be singing that song for hours upon hours. You know, hours.
Yeah. I
catchy. Just a line out of it. You know, the line out of it drives my wife nuts.
Yeah, but every now and then you find one of those songs that just put you in a good mood.
Oh, every day you got to find a song that puts you in a good mood. That's why I usually start my mornings out, listen to two songs, kind of get pumped up.
For the longest time, for a couple of years, I would say, when one of my kids was in a bad mood, mostly my daughter, and she didn't want to smile, I would, you guys are going to hate me, I would put on Everything Is Awesome. I don't care what you say. When you hear that Lego song, Everything Is Awesome, and you get to the rap section, which most people don't hear, you cannot be in a bad mood because it is so stupid. All right. The things that he raps about is so stupid that, I mean, I would watch my daughter try and be in a bad mood, and I'd watch her face. I'm like, yeah, see, you got to smile.
Start smiling a little bit.
So yeah, I fully get what you're talking about. But yeah, you'll get to the point where you'll start to miss some of these kid shows.
But just so fast too.
Oh my God. Olivia and I, she tends to pick out like a TV show. And a lot of it's Disney. A lot of it's like Disney shows. And we watched it was called Big Shot with John Stamos. I think they had like 2 seasons, then they canceled it. Very disappointing. But in it, he's supposed to be Rick Pitino. He's a mix of Rick Pitino and what was the Indiana coach that died finally? They fired him. Bobby Knight. It's kind of like a mixture of them. And I think a lot like Rick Pitino because John Stamos kind of looks like Rick Pitino. And he's a college coach. He ends up having to be a high school coach. His daughter comes to live with him. And he's trying to make an acronym, Take Care, Keep Safe. So TCKS. Show got canceled. But we saw it, and I started shooting over to my daughter, and I still shoot it over to her, and she'll shoot it back. There's probably 5 other people in the world that actually do that because they watch. I don't think so. But we still do it, and the show's been canceled for like 2 or 3 years now. But I still shoot it over to her, and I think she just thinks it's like the coolest thing in the world.
That's awesome. That's like a moment.
Yeah. You'll find again, like your son's young still. So
oh yeah.
Those moments, man, and again, I think, and again, I'm not, it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm the only one that has these. I hate those people that are like, oh yeah, I'm the only one that, like, fuck you, dude. We all have kids. We all have moments. But man, you find those moments, and I like to look at it as I think that it's more of a what they're going to remember when we're gone, or when we get older. My daughter, when I would drive them both to school when he was in high school. Well, their school was on the same property, but she couldn't be dropped off for like 40 minutes after I dropped him off, or 45, depending on what time I dropped him off. So we'd go to Walmart every morning. Every morning I had her, we'd go to Walmart because it was 5 minutes down the street. And by the time we got back to her school, we were still usually the first people in line, maybe the second. So we'd go to Walmart toy hunting. There was never anything there. And then one day she comes around the corner and she started playing the Pac-Man game. And then we started playing one game of Pac-Man together. She only beat me one time. We played every day. And then I'll never forget, we come around the corner and she's like, it's gone. Because it was the one you could buy. So
yeah, yeah.
Yep. And she still bitches about it.
That's hilarious.
But her last day of middle school, because I had them, I dropped him off. And then I went to Walmart, and I'm like, this is the last day that we're going to be toy hunting, dropping you off before school. It's something she's going to remember just because I'm like, how many of your other friends dad take them toy hunting before you go to school? She's like, none. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Your dad is cool. But there was a fart gun that was there for like 2 years. Like a minion fart. And
Minions.
she kind of, she thinks it's like the hilarious, and then the one day the fart gun was gone. She's obviously either sleeping or not paying attention, or she would be in here right now going on.
Probably all my beard. Who's that creepy guy?
So let's talk a little bit about your YouTube channel and what you collect. So what exactly are you collecting?
Right now, or just as a whole?
Just in general. What is the big thing that you collect and everything?
Well, basically, I started out, I do vintage G.I. Joe from, 1964 up to 1976. And that's primarily what I focus on. I buy some Action Man stuff, which was made into the 80s. And that's been the primary focus on my channel. Just collecting that, customizing it, making stuff for it, and then reviewing newly manufactured things from like Cotswold Collectibles and some of the other smaller manufacturers. So that's kind of what I really focus on, because that's kind of like what I'm really interested in, but I do some other stuff. I throw other stuff in there. I throw different action figures that I think are cool. They don't necessarily have to be new. Different toys that I buy. Like I've been buying a lot of stuff from Japan, and bringing it back here to the States and reviewing it. I've got a whole list of stuff to review. And then I do the photo stories. I do my photo stories, which I love doing more than anything, because I think that gives me an ability to take all the stuff that I buy and go out and play with it in a way, right? I see you do photos for Instagram and stuff, and I take all my toys and I buy now. I basically buy now to make photo stories. So I get an idea that I'm going to buy or customize to put stuff together.
So
make a video.
So when I started collecting again, it was G.I. Joe. I've collected over the years, Spawn figures, Power of the Force, a lot of Star Wars. There's always been some G.I. Joe, because I always loved my O-ring stuff. So when I started collecting, after my ex and I split up, Walmart had come out with the 4-inch G.I. Joe figures, and then I found the classified figures.
Yeah.
And then, I started picking up other stuff. I saw the Age of Apocalypse, X-Men, and I loved that that arc. I don't really remember it so much anymore, but I remember loving it. I love X-Man. I love the fact that they brought him over in Dark Beast, right? So I started picking up, more stuff, and I started just kind of reviewing it. In when I have a hard time selling my stuff off because everything I buy because I want it, not because this is the new cool thing. I'm gonna get it. I buy stuff that I like that I've seen, right? But I was displaying everything, and then it starts to get to the point where the GI Joe and the military stuff is kind of taking over. So that stuff's coming down. I'm like, maybe I should get rid of it. But then I started taking taking photos, and I wouldn't call myself a photographer. And I'm like, I don't want to get rid of this stuff because I like doing some of these photos with it. And now I'm like, what you're kind of saying, like, there are some stuff that I'll see and I'll be like, I need that because I think that will work good with the GI Joes that I've done. It's Marvel Legends, so it's going to work with that. I can also have it go up against the gargoyles. So yeah, I have started to pick up some stuff just because it's going to be good for photography and not just in one setting. I picked up a NECA Predator because I'm like, dude, I've always wanted to see the Predator versus Wolverine. I know they did a comic book about it, but Predator hunting down the Joes. Like, there's so many things that it's like one Predator from NECA. I don't need great articulation from it. I didn't get it because it's NECA. So yeah, I'm kind of with you, but I want to hear what you were talking about with Ed about the buying stuff from Japan, and you were talking about the prices, but how you're able to get the shipping down.
Right. So there's a site in Japan, and I think a lot of people know about it, but maybe don't know a lot about it. I learned about it from the video game community. A lot of people in those really wild video game communities will buy the rare games in Japan and the rare systems over there that they don't necessarily sell over here, and then they'll just buy them on this place called Syndico, and they'll have all these systems shipped to them. And I learned about it. I had a buddy at work whose son does it. So he told me about it, and I said, I'm going to get on there. I'm going to look and see if I can find, some Henshin Cyborgs, which is a 12-inch kind of Micronauts line. It was the predecessor of Micronauts. There's Takara Combat Joe, which is the 12-inch GI Joe version that Takara did. And then I looked up Jumbo Machinders, and I started finding all this stuff on there for really reasonable prices. Like, for example, maybe your community can kind of relate to, like Moth-X. The Moth-X figures are like what, $80 or $90 here, I think.
Yeah.
I found a Moth-X Spider-Man for $50. So what I usually do is I buy a bunch of stuff for cheap, and then you bundle it all together and have it sent via FedEx on one. They bundle it into one big box and they ship it to you. So your shipping can run anywhere from $50 to $100. But if you're buying like 10 or 11 items, your shipping's basically spread out amongst those items. So you're really getting a lot cheaper deal than you would be over here in the States. So I found a lot of vintage antique toys that I wanted several years ago, but I never wanted to spend the money on for a lot cheaper in shipping. Like this here, like I've always wanted this. You guys recognize this?
I Phoenix. But I'm gonna
enlarge you guys. It's the G5 God Phoenix, and it was made by a company called Artstorm, probably about 12 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't buy it, but I've always wanted a really nice God Phoenix, die-cast metal Phoenix. I bought that for, I think it was like $80. And then, I had it with a bunch of other stuff that I, had shipped back here for around, I think it was $80. So I spread the shipping out amongst all those items, and it's really not that much, if you're getting the stuff you want.
Yeah, and again, I think, and you were talking about with Ed how you said, I find stuff from 5, 10 years ago that I wanted, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, there it is. I'm gonna pick it up, and I find myself buying less and less older stuff just
Do
because
you?
now yeah, again, like really the only vintage stuff that I want is GI Joe, O-ring
Hmm.
stuff. Like that's the only thing that I'm really looking to collect. I don't want to get into collecting He-Man stuff, like vintage Mochi
Right.
stuff. I don't want to get that stuff. Although I went to Sergeant Red's today, and I can't think of Tongue Lasher. I saw the Mattel Classics. I think it was the Classics one, and I was like, damn, that is a good looking figure. Like that is a damn good looking sculpt. It was like $65. I was like, I wouldn't mind just to buy that and just have it for no
Just
reason.
have
I
that
don't have
figure.
any other ones. It's just I don't know why. Like I've never been like in love with Tongue Lasher. I think if it was like Cobra Khan, it'd make more sense. But I was just strolling through and I looked at it. I was like, that is a damn good fucking looking figure.
Yeah,
um,
I mean, I loved classics. I didn't buy any of them, but I loved that line. That was during my first marriage that all came out, and I didn't collect anything, but I collect Origins still. I still buy some of them. Uh,
I had to get
my
away.
son, you had to get away from it.
So Origins. So Origins came out during the same time as Classified during COVID. I did
Yeah,
not want to collect it because I already knew what was going to happen. And I would walk by it and I would tell Olivia, if I ever see He-Man, Skeletor, Panther, and Battle Cat all together, I'm going to buy them just so I can have that. And then I'm done. I knew where it would lead. Well, I finally saw them all together. But you can only walk into Walmart in the morning so many times and not find anything new G.I. Joe. But find every single fucking He-Man figure. And I'm telling you, there were numerous times I saw every single Origins figure on those shelves. Now, they'd get a case in. Maybe we were just one of the store, like it was multiple Walmarts. I'd find all of them. I found, Orko, Man at Arms, all these ones that were really hard to get that I was like, I should have bought them all up and just sold them on eBay because they were going for crazy amounts of money. I don't like
I
the guy,
know.
but like if I'm finding it, um, and then I went down that road, and I had almost a whole collection, other than like the exclusives, and they were sitting there, and then I finally got to the point where it's like they weren't producing new characters that I liked. Some of them I really liked, and I would order them. Um, and I had asked around about selling them, and it was finally when my buddy Oz said, "Yeah, I'm interested in these figures," and one of them was Triclops. Once I was able to break up those original bad figures, like bad guys or good guys, like as soon as someone needed a He-Man, Man at Arms, Tila, Skeletor, Trapjaw, I was like, I can finally part with these. But as long as I had those core characters, those core ones that were like in every episode, there's no way I was going to get rid of it. But once he went, I was like, boom, I was able to sell everything that I wanted. I did find myself keeping He-Man. I really realized I liked the He-Man sculpts. So I kept like
They're cool.
Faker, He-Man. I actually have a Battle Armor He-Man right here. Like I have a bunch of the He-Man, and I kept like Cobra Khan and Camel Khan. But I'm so glad I got out of it because it was just one more thing that I kept spending my money on. But I just
I
replaced it with something else.
Yeah, I bought them all. I bought them for my son to play with. He likes them. He thinks they're okay. He plays with them sometimes. I think I buy them for myself. If I'm honest, but I'm starting to get the feeling when I saw that they announced Club Gray School today, they're almost turning into Mattel Classics all over again. I just think it's like a Mattel Classics redo. And I'm like you. I've got to figure out how to mentally get an escape point. You know what I'm saying? Like I just gotta. What's gonna be my last figure to buy? I gotta figure that out. Am I gonna stop with just the original releases, or am I gonna buy some of these fucking new ones? I hate Turtles of Grayskull. Turtles of Grayskull is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, in my opinion. I'm like, you kidding me right now? Fucking hate Turtles. Do you like Turtles of Grayskull?
It doesn't bother me.
I like the Thundercats.
I only have one. I bought the Trapjaw one. I forget what his name is. But,
I think they're cool. I mean, there's some cool ones, but it just seems like a big money grab to me. Like, but I don't know.
But like my buddy's Customs, he said this was his dream. As a kid, he always mixed his Turtles and He-Man. And he said, when I saw this, he said, this was my fucking dream crossover. And all I can relate it to is G.I. Joe and Transformers being crossed over. And I know there's 100%. Somewhat doing now, but to actually have, again, like, the rumor is that it's going to be an Optimus Prime Mobat as. Why can't I just get a fucking Optimus Prime as a semi with Hawk or whoever? I don't. I don't need a new Mobat. I want an actual.
I don't know.
Semi, a Peterbilt semi of Optimus Prime that fits my G.I. Joes. So I fully understand what he was saying. I do. I like the muscular Splinter. I said, as soon as I see that, I'm going to buy it. But then I saw it. I'm like, I really don't need a muscular Splinter, but he's so fucking cool. He looks like he's on steroids. And I love the turtle I love the turtle with and I don't care what you say, not you, but in people, it's Donald Trump hair. You can't tell me that they didn't model that off Donald Trump hair and put it on. And it makes me laugh every time we see it at Target. I'm like, it's Donald Trump as a turtle.
I think my thing with the Turtles of Grayskull is just it's probably my age. I get why people love it. I read the comments. I'm like, okay, I see it. That's that age group. I got a nephew who's 10 years younger than me, and he probably loves. It's just not my deal. I don't know. I'm just more of a purist type guy, I guess. I'm one of those douchebags who's just like, oh, they can't mix that. But it's all objective, though, right?
I don't like Street Fighter G.I. Joe. I don't need that shit.
I didn't like that either.
I see people like in Facebook communities and like, what celebrities should G.I. Joe bring in? None. How about that as an answer? Fucking none. All right, you have Sergeant Slaughter. If you can give me a Rocky, awesome. I don't need celebrities in G.I. Joe. Wow.
I don't need that mix at all. It's not the mix I want. And if you're a guy who wants that, that's cool, I guess. That's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. But,
How about this? This is the celebrity that I want in G.I. Joe. Make us a good movie and then make action figures of those characters.
Oh, shit.
How about that?
I think you went too much. I think you might want too much there.
I'm just getting crazy now.
Yeah, you should get a genie.
Well, you know what? I've said before for G.I. Joe, I don't know how you can't make good G.I. Joe movies. They literally already have a script for you. They're called the comics. And all you have to do is adapt them to today.
You get too many people involved in the production process and too many hands in the pile, and it always goes to shit. It's just He-Man movie. This He-Man movie they're making, I know it's going to be terrible. How are the people who do the Sonic movies to make your movies? They make good movies. Those Sonic's movies are good movies.
The Super Mario Brothers movie was really good. I know it's all animated, but it was really good. I mean, really good.
Why can't you make an animated G.I. Joe movie?
CGI. I think that they should. I think you have to bring kids into G.I. Joe, and I go, and I know a lot of people don't like this. And I keep saying it. Every time I say it, everyone's like, I love that. You look at Teen Titans Go. Have you watched Teen Titans Go with your kid? It is awesome. And I don't care that people are like,
great.
There's not how the Teen Titans are. I know they're for kids. But you already have, it's literally called Yo Joe. Like, the name is right there. And you have a little kid version of Duke and Scarlet and Snake Eyes and Cobra Commander and Destro. And you have all these other characters that you can bring in every now and then. And sometimes they work together and they do funny things. And then kids start, oh, I like G.I. Joe, and then they see the classified and they don't know what it is. And as they get older, they start reading the comics and they're like, oh, wow, this is pretty gritty. You know, it could be something that's done so easily. And I'll say it again.
I just think they have
too many Transformers.
Yeah.
Transformers. Transformers are never going to go away because you know what? How hard is it to sell, hey, son, this is a car that changes into a fucking robot? Like, that's never going to go out of style.
I still think that
it's hard.
I think you just look at the Snake Eyes movie. Look what they did to that. They just can't not fuck with something. You know what I'm saying? They just can't not. You know how a kid, you got a little kid, and you're like, hey, don't touch that. And he's like, that's fucking Hollywood with good properties. You're like, here's the deal. Don't fuck this up. And then the first thing, you get 3 different writers that come in there in skinny jeans and sneakers and their hair all fucking TikToked up, and they're like, guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna fuck this up. It's exactly what they do. They do it all the time. It's not like it's like a one-time thing.
No, and again, I understand things have to be adapted. And I like the Marvel Universe. I like the MCU. I know not everyone does. I can also see some of the problems. But when you look at the Infinity Saga, almost all those movies were good. You know, the worst movie is average. Like Thor: The Dark World is probably the worst, and I enjoy that just because I like Thor. But you look at Civil War, and you definitely look at The Winter Soldier. That's not a good superhero movie. That's a good movie. Just plain.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
You look at that first Iron Man movie. Right. That holds up today. Mm-hmm. Now that's a lot coming from you because you were probably screaming at the screen the whole time. Fuck you, Tony. Fuck you.
I didn't go see that movie actually. No, I didn't. But I saw it later on DVD, I think. But yeah, I agree with you. I just think that I don't know if they know how to do that. I don't even know if they know how to do that anymore to make those movies. I don't think if you gave Disney that property today, they would not make those movies the same way today.
No,
you know what I'm saying,
but there's nothing. I mean, in every generation, they're going to make something. They're going to make things differently, you know. Yeah. And when it comes to G.I. Joe, people are so in love with that lore and very committed, and it doesn't make any sense because Larry Hama is still around. And as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the real American hero, he is the George Lucas, right? I'm sorry if he says, yeah, you know what? Quick Kick was fucking stupid and Shipwreck didn't exist. Okay, that's fine. I believe you. I have 84 fucking shipwrecks. I have 84, but I have a lot. So my dad bought me a lot for the aircraft carrier. You know, like he didn't like the character, so he didn't use him. He thought he was stupid. Like, I'm sorry, you made a real American hero. And I don't care what anyone says. The cartoon is not what G.I. Joe is based off of. But you just have, you have your blueprint. You have your outline of doing a movie. And you have the outline of Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow and the whole Rashikagi clan. It doesn't have to be the exact same, right? It doesn't have to be the exact same. but you can do what you did with like Civil War and modify it so that it's not bad. Fuck you, Tony Stark. Fuck you. I think I need to.
That's all anybody's going to remember from this live stream is Tony Stark.
You got very animated about, and I love, like, that's what I love. Because let's be honest, you're talking about a fictional character in a comic, and yet you still hold the grudge. Like I can't stand Spirit because Spirit could not beat Storm Shadow. Matt, Tony Stark is government's trash.
Government bootlicker is what he is.
All right. So as for your YouTube channel, where do you see it going? Like, what do you want for it? Because I know you're doing some stuff with it. So let's talk about that just for a little bit. Ed says, "Fucking Phil Collins is now fuck you, Tony Stark." And we can have both. We can have both.
With the YouTube channel, I don't even know where I see it going. I never, honestly, I think I have 2,435 subscribers right now. And when I started it back in 2019, I didn't think I'd get 10 subscribers. And here I am, 5 years later, and I have 2,435. And I think I've built it being myself. Like, I don't basically what you see on the camera is basically who I am. Other than maybe I'm not as animated. I'm not saying fuck you, Tony Stark. I'm not really going off on tangents or anything, but I'm just basically who you see is a guy who loves the hobby, loves sharing stuff with people.
You should start every show with
a t-shirt made.
Tony Stark. Or maybe finish it. You don't want to get demonetized. So finish it with that. Oh,
by the way, I don't want to get demonetized. Fuck you, Tony Stark. Yeah, but I have built it from the ground up. I don't spend a lot of time in production. Most of all the videos you ever see of mine are done in one take. Limited production value. They're pretty raw, which is the way I like it. Yeah, because I think it's who I am. I'm not trying to make money off of it. Like, it's not my job. It's my hobby, and I love doing it. I love sharing my hobby with everybody, and I've made a lot of really good friends. So I don't know where I see it going. I just would like to continue to put out cool videos that people find interesting, and they're not always right. I fuck a lot of stuff up on my videos, and maybe there's people out there who are way better customizers, way better at things than I am. They're probably like, this guy's a dipshit, which is fine with me because, I don't claim to be anything other than that, really. And I would just like to keep growing it and keep having fun with it. I've got certain things planned, like our Golden Skull thing. Hopefully that works out. And hopefully I can come on more shows like yours or other people's and kind of my channel out there by discovery, because it's a pretty cool channel if you're into certain stuff. I mean, I just want it to be, I want it to always stay what it is. And that's just Skunkworks Studios. I'm going to put out 2 videos a week. If you like them, watch them. If you don't, whatever,
Well, quickly here, Ed has donated 1 Punk membership. Ooh. So you get a
welcome to the creamery.
So, and that is J Solo Arts, who I don't even think is here right now. And then Daredevil Dave has jumped in here. Honest to God, hearing you, like, when I asked, you gave an answer almost like I do, where it's like, hey, you know what? Yeah. I'm very raw. And if you don't like it, maybe there's people that probably think I suck, then just move on. But I think what you said about, hey, you know what, this is who I am. I do this really, I like to do things on one take. The way that I see that is like, I started doing that because I didn't know how to do YouTube videos. And again, you go watch my early reviews. You literally will see me walking into the camera, standing behind my bar, way far away. Those people probably watch those reviews like, I can't see the goddamn figure. So like, but I learned over time, like, hey, you adjust it, you get better at it. But for me, and I have a feeling that's the same for you, like that's what people want to see for you. It works for you and the people that are following you, that they're like, I like that this is raw. If it was Articulated Ninja, you don't want to see him doing a review like mine. He puts a lot of time, effort into it, a lot of awesome production with great, photography and posing and everything. You don't want to see that exact same thing. I don't think you want to see the same thing from any people. You want to see people have their own style. So when you're doing something, and if you're sitting at almost 2,500 subs, you're doing something right. Because again, we're not in a huge niche. We're not talking about the new iPhone and Android where everyone has one. And the thing I keep preaching about is there's so many content creators coming into what we're doing right now, and they're buying subs. They're doing massive giveaways, and I
watched that video of yours.
Yeah, and I feel like
the one you had.
Yeah, I feel like people are trying to build their penthouse and floor 99 and 97 on a foundation of 2x4s instead of build your foundation and then you work your way up, building your high rise, because that thing's going to come completely crumbling down when you realize like you brought on all these big, huge content creators trying to build it. And when you can't offer them anything, they're going to be done with you. And you haven't built this, the base of the people that are going to tune in every single day and watch you, or not every single day, because, anyone that gives me a little bit of time, I'm happy for. Because our time is precious, our time is precious. But the other thing that you had definitely mentioned is that the people that I've met. I made some of my best friends through this stupid fucking screen. All the times that I told my kid, hey, those aren't real friends. You don't know them. And here I am, years later, going.
She's like, hey.
Yeah. 3-star says lies. They sit on a throne of lies.
One thing I try to do, and I don't know if I always do it, but I try to be as authentic as possible. Like, I try to just be as much me as I, because I think if you're honest with the people you're doing the videos for, and you're honest with yourself, I think then the success of your channel is just going to be tied to that. Like, if people get on your channel and think this guy's just full of shit, he's a jackass, they're not going to like it. But I think channels like yours, I watch Ed's channel, he does his toilet takeover. You guys are being you guys. You guys, if I, like you said, meeting people through the screens are good friends. Like us talking tonight, I feel like this is how you and I would talk if we were at a con together, sitting around a table and just shooting the shit. We'd be doing that. And I think there's something to be said about authenticity and being undeniable, being who you really are, because I think people really understand that. And I think a lot of people who watch our videos, they see that. They're like, yeah, I can relate to that dude. He might mess a word up. He might not say Robotech correctly. Or he might not say Veritech correctly. Instead of attacking him and saying, hey, you're a dumbass, you can't pronounce a word correctly or whatever, we're like, it's funny, I get that. That's the most stuff I get on my channel is people attacking the way I say words, which is fucking hilarious. I'm like, what are you guys they gotta be bots. I mean,
well, no, I get it. I get it. God forbid when I call a magazine a clip. Holy shit. With that said, I did do research and I saw what the difference was between a magazine and a clip, and I understand. But I had military guys go, hey, just so you know, that's that's a magazine, not a clip, and this is the reason why. You can tell when someone's being a dick, and when other people are being like, "Hey, just so you know, this is the reason why." Now, this is what Matthew always says: authenticity is the new currency.
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
I agree 100%.
Ed says Lawrence doesn't say a lot of words. Say a lot correctly.
I don't either.
He is correct.
I am not a wordsmith, and I don't try
No.
to be.
And I've said before, you do a live stream by yourself and you're trying to read the stuff. You don't have someone talking when you're trying to, and I'll read shit off. And I obliterate the English language a lot. But I think that's one of the things that people come to see on my streams. And even, again, I'm not going to, if I fuck up a word and I'm 15 minutes into a review, I'm not going to go redo that video.
I'm not even.
If I'm like 2 minutes into it, I might, if it bothers me that bad.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it's
not redoing it.
Yeah. It's one of the things I hate about TV shows. I mean, I understand, but we all make mistakes, but like in a TV show, they never make a mistake while talking. They never stutter.
No, they're actors. They're actors. I'm not an actor. I'm a real dude. I did do one video where I reviewed a Sergeant Rock character, and I kept saying it was created by Jack Kirby, and I was having a slip, and I knew after I did it that every motherfucker in those comments, there's going to be some asshole that comments and just lectures me on it was Joe Kubert. So I actually did a follow-up video to tell everybody I made a mistake, because there's always that one asshole who for some reason has to feel better by telling you were wrong. And I always like this, in the back of my head, I'm always like, yeah, I was wrong, but who fucking cares? I'm still making the same paycheck no matter what I get wrong on my YouTube channel.
So,
it's just like.
So I did a review of Zartan. But throughout the video, I called him Destro. I have no idea why. It's not like I don't know the difference between Destro and Zartan. But I did the whole video, and I called him like Destro like 3 times. I have no fucking clue why. My buddy Ryan, Dreadnought Ryan, he's like, "Hey, by the way, that's Zartan, not Destro." And I'm like, he does a fucking review completely calling Ripcord Airborne, I think. And I was like, "Hey, by the way," and he's like, and I write it like, "That's Ripcord, not Airborne." And he like responded like, "I knew that one was coming."
It's not hard to do. It's not hard to screw those names up. It really is.
Well, Destro and Zartan it is. Or Zertan. Zertan is Bobby B calls him.
You didn't call him like Zertak.
But yeah, again, like I don't care. Like if it bothered me, I would not have put the video out. And you know what?
Yeah.
We make mistakes, and it's not like it would be different if it's like, hey, you know what? Hasbro they're paying you $5,000 to do this, do this review. Okay, well then I'm gonna go fucking fix it. If they want, like, if someone is paying me, but no one's paying me other than a little bit that YouTube pays me, which I'm not going to turn away.
The crumbs they give us.
Yeah, Gene Wilder, Gene Hackman, whatever. I didn't call Gene Hackman Gene Wilder. I was talking. I did not say. I said Gene Wilder when I said Willy Wonka. Didn't I? Did I see Gene Hackman?
Oh, I don't remember.
And Jeff jumping in here saying that man's beard is mighty.
Thanks. Thank you. It's not as good as it used to be, but it's good.
I can't grow a beard, so I can grow a goatee, but I can't grow a beard. And I
you
would
got
not
a nice mustache.
Thank you. I never had one, and then I did one, and I shaved it, and it was before Top Gun 2 Maverick. I'm just going to say that right now. Before Top Gun Maverick, which is an awesome movie. But everyone started doing it after that. But I'm like, no, I did it before then. Not far before then, but it was before then. And I wouldn't have modeled mine after his mustache anyway. Oh, I did. Okay. Now you guys knew what I was talking about. They're both dead now, so it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, they're not gonna be upset.
No. And if they are, they can't really. They can complain to my mom. Yeah, no, Matthew, I don't like that. But anyway, it's been over 3 hours. I have to work in the morning. I know you said you don't. I told you this goes by so quick.
No, before we go, I told Ed I wanted to share a couple things with you on here, and we talked about this. I don't know if you remember when we first met, and I'm going to share just a couple things. I'm going to do a video later on this year, but I brought these down especially for you. So my brother Joel, who's 6 years older than me, he collected G.I. Joe, and he collected the O-ring figures, and I was up at my mom and dad's attic 20 years ago, and he had left all his G.I. Joe stuff there. So I brought some of it down from my attic to share with you. The first thing I have is his headquarters.
That is beautiful.
Okay. Yep. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. This has probably only been set up twice ever.
Wow.
Set up in his room with your kids. And in here is not only the headquarters, he's also got the whole bridge layer.
Does it have green? Does it have green spray paint on it? For some odd reason, I like my bridge layer is my original, but for some odd reason, I thought that I would hit it with a little bit of green spray paint for some reason, and it drives me nuts. It drives me nuts that it's on it.
You would do that. So also in his case here, if I can get it out.
Oh.
It's all the parts in there. Ace is still in here with his parachute.
Oh man, you have the parachutes?
Parachute's still in there. That's all in here. And then I brought down this other one. What's that?
He's got all that in the box? Like all that's fit in the box? Holy shit.
Yeah. So it's got all that. And then of course I grabbed the other box, and in it we've got the Rattler. I just haven't got it put together. Complete Rattler. We got Wild Weasel here. He needs a new O-ring. Let's see what else.
Right? You gotta have some O-ring.
We got our Fang here. We still got to put the parts back together. Those are all just taken apart to storage. Yeah, they all need new O-rings. And we've got in here, I can't pull it out. I've got a complete, is it the whale?
The hovercraft?
The hovercraft. Yeah, he's got a complete whale in here. And he's got all the original 82 figures. We got all those before they had the swivel arm battle grips.
I mean, I hate those figures, but man.
I know you hate them, but they're the old ones. We got is it the Whirlwind?
Yep.
Was that what that was called?
Yeah.
We got all the blueprints from everything. That was one of the coolest things about the 80
I don't have
all
any
the blueprints, right?
The blueprints that was a stroke of genius.
It was.
Because how long did you look at those as a kid?
Not long.
Really? You didn't? I remember.
I think I looked at some of them. Sartans.
I don't have that. I gotta get one.
And do you remember they used to sell weapon sets?
Oh yeah.
A whole bag of those babies. And that's just a little bit of what's in here. I got a complete shark.
Do you
Deep
even have the pump?
six.
Do you even have the pump for it?
Pumps in there.
Oh, so I don't have the pump.
Yep.
I don't think I have the pump for mine.
Got a mail order. Was it the Manta Ray? The hoverboard? The little
that's the Manta.
Manta. And
I
didn't.
bought that. I bought that in the Whirlwind when I was in St. Louis a couple years ago. What a dumb thing. But I
It
love
was
it.
terrible. It was a terrible mail-in. And
The Manta?
we got
Yeah,
the
like-
Strike Cycle, the little robot vehicles that they had. Remember
the
those?
pack rats.
Yep. And I did not dig these out, but you would appreciate these. Do you remember the styrofoam hang gliders?
Dude, you have those?
Complete.
Yeah,
My
don't fly
brother
them.
has those.
Don't
No,
fly
I'm not
them.
gonna. I don't know if I would.
Do you have a mortgage?
No,
Okay.
no.
Do you have any big bills? Sell them
Nope.
and pay off your big bills.
Well, they're my brothers. I would not sell them, but
Sell them and buy a new brother.
these. Still got my favorite O-ring. I love the jetpack.
See, I never had that as a kid, and I don't even know why. I mean,
So
I have
yeah,
one
I
now.
got all his. Got the soul raft. I wanted to share this with you because I know you've been doing all the O-ring stuff, and I know you're a big O-ring guy. I'm gonna probably do a video of all this. I'm gonna unbox it and put it all together and show everybody before I tell him I have it.
The thing I like about the O-ring stuff that I'm doing is that I always talk about like the videos that I do. You know, they have most of the stuff has a finite amount of time. Then they're done, right?
Mhm.
Reviews.
Right.
But when you start looking at the O-ring stuff, that's going to be stuff that people will look at forever because it's not changing.
Oh,
It's something that's
No.
worth money. It's something that takes people back to their childhood. The vehicles
Yeah.
tend to do much better. I can say that. People love seeing when people pull out all this stuff and they're looking at all this different stuff. Because it takes you to a time where a bill was someone you knew in school, not something you had to pay.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a timestamp. GI Joe's. As we wrap it up, you and I both love GI Joe. I love the vintage stuff, the '70s stuff. You like the classified ring. I think what the best part is, I think I even said this to Ed. I think the best part is that GI Joe's still around, and anytime we're talking GI Joe, regardless of what the scale is, that's a good thing for us. And
Yeah.
I hope that moving forward, Hasbro, regardless of what they do, I don't know if they're going to license it out to everybody under the sun. I did laugh at your Valiverse comment the other night, but
he's not kidding.
hopefully it stays in the ether because I think it's important I think it's just important to boys as a boys toy. And I don't know if boys play with classified anymore, but I have a feeling that eventually someday it all comes full circle. And
it does. I've been at Sergeant Red's where I watch kids come in and go straight, like look and ask right where the GI Joe stuff is.
Yeah.
And they're looking at all the classified. Now, again, it's not like we were in the 80s where you walked down an aisle and there was 10 kids looking at the GI Joe figures and you wanted to grab whichever one you wanted just in case you were going to be able to get it. But I think the military stuff is always going to be there. There's always
too.
a next group of kids that are military. Will Cobra La be something that they want? I hope not, because I hate Cobra La, but they're making it, and I'm going to be buying it. But I'm with you.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what scale it is. Why there's a fight and a battle over the scale of GI Joe figures is something that I don't understand. I mean, I don't care. I don't understand why it matters if it's a 4-inch figure, if it's a 3.75 figure, if it's the new 6-inch figures or the 12-inch figures. I have no interest in the 12-inch figures. None at all.
Right.
But you know what? If all of a sudden I see that they are creating new 12-inch figures that are based off of the original, good for you. And good for other people that like that.
Yeah.
I can look at it from afar and be like, I'm not really interested in it, but it's there for the people that want it. And hopefully it does well.
Yeah.
So it continues to make them say, hey, you know what? Let's make this. Maybe they will make some more 4-inch figures. I don't understand why there's so much fighting and battling over the different scales. Because it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Hope eventually. No, it makes no sense. As long as they're making money, I mean, if they're making money, then they're going to keep making GI Joe.
Yeah,
and that's what it boils down to. I hope someday, like you and I were talking about them doing a movie. I hope someday that I find it in them to be creative and create the next GI Joe. You know what I'm saying? Like in '64, you had the GI Joe Action Soldier. In '70, you had the Adventure Team. Super Joe died quick, but then in '82 we had Real American Hero, and then there's really not been anything after that other than Sigma 6 and Extreme, which didn't do well at all.
You tried
I want them
Sergeant.
to make something. Sergeant Savage, which I thought was a cool line. It's just it's hard. It didn't resonate because of the scale to me.
Yeah, Sergeant Savage was the wrong scale, and here's someone I just said why we argue about scale. It didn't make sense at the time, but I said before, I think the Sergeant Savage, that whole line would work perfect with the classified.
Oh, 100%. I would like to see them do a classified Sergeant Savage figure, wouldn't you?
Oh, I think those figures just not scale, they would translate, I think, wonderfully over. And I think people would like it.
Do you know, I've always said this, I would say we all agree Classified is a pretty successful brand right now, right? I think it's pretty successful.
I think it is the most successful adult toy line right now. Not the biggest, but the most successful and the hottest one going right now.
I would love to see them take a chance and do a G.I. Joe Legends line of those size figures, and it encompasses every iteration of G.I. Joe. I think that would be ultra successful. I think if you did just do a couple of figures from G.I. Joe Extreme in a classified scale, do Super G.I. Joe in classified scale, do Adventure Team in classified scale, you would probably sell the shit out of those.
And that's what I think the team wants to do. But when they started classified, they were trying to build off that Operation Blackout game. And unfortunately, the community said, we don't want this. And they whined and cried because they didn't want the next iteration of G.I. Joe, right? So they course corrected, which is probably the best thing to do because now they are hot. They are, they're killing. But I think at this point, because again, what people don't understand, and you'll probably understand this, Hasbro is a $1 billion company. G.I. Joe is not a $1 billion brand. So if they give you a budget of, let's say, $100,000, and again, I know it's more than $100,000, but they give you $100,000. If you exceed that and make $150,000 in that year, well, next year your budget's $150,000, and then let's say you hit 250. Your budget's going up because you're exceeding. I think that this point now, with how successful they are, this is when they can start doing that with 1 or 2 figures a year.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you know
Yeah,
what?
I think so.
We're gonna do 4 Sergeant Savage figures. I don't even know. I know there's Sergeant Savage and what Claw. I don't know what his name was. Um, but I know there's at least 4 figures. They do 4 or 5 figures, right? Maybe one wave. Or they just trinkle, like sprinkle them in, where they can actually work with any of the classified, right? And
Mm-hmm.
again, you're going to use other parts of other figures, but this is the time that you can do it because you are so successful, and you know that there are people that will buy anything. Then there are other people that are
Yeah,
only
I
going to
agree.
buy what looks like the O-ring. And
Yeah.
those are the people that drive me nuts. It's like, I just want the O-ring. Like, all right, well, that's why they're not giving everything to you, because they don't want people to leave.
I would buy. I own 2 classified figures. I have Stalker and Sergeant Slaughter. I like both of them. They're cool figures. I would buy more of them if they resonated with me. I just got too much shit. I buy too much stuff, And but then again, if they made a Sergeant Savage, I'd probably buy that figure. I'd probably buy
But
it.
think about what you just said. I have 2 classified figures, but here you are saying, I want to see them do more, because you realize, like, hey, this is what's hot right now. This is what people want. I don't care what anyone says. It's mostly older people buying GI Joe, and our eyes suck. Almost all of us, our eyes suck. So for me to look at this figure here is way easier than to sit there and look at an O-ring. All right, because we can't see shit these days.
My eyes are like this.
Yeah. I don't want to get to that point. I can't go to 12-inch figures. I don't have enough room. Not to mention, I have so many 6-inch figures now, including all the 4-inch, the 1/18. I guess they're not all 4-inch. A lot of them are 3.75. So
like I said, I just would love to see them do some other iterations and bring in like a Legends line and do other lines that I think people would actually probably love. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know.
I wouldn't care if they did. I wouldn't care if they did figures based off of the movie. It wouldn't bother me, because the movies were successful. They were successful to a point. So if you did if you did a not Renegades, but Retaliation, you did 5 figures from Retaliation. You did The Rock and Storm Shadow or whatever. It wouldn't bother me, because if I don't want them, I just don't buy them.
Yeah,
maybe there are people maybe there are kids that are walking by that are now in their 20s that love that movie. I don't know if anyone loved that movie, but there's got to be someone.
Well, they're going to be kit bash fodder too, right? There's going to be people to buy them for kit bash, and that's what you're seeing a lot of people do now. I mean, people buy shit and they're pulling the heads off and putting different heads on, and But I'm with you. You have to support it, because you want to see any kind of it moving forward. You're going to have to get with the date you brought, and that's what's hot now.
Yeah, and again, you don't have to support it. You don't have to support it just because it's G.I. Joe, but they're making good figures. So even if it's not something that you want, you should support it, because they're making good figures. It may not be your scale, but maybe eventually they go back to doing that, or making just some for you. You should, again.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think as it's become more successful, they're going to probably take more chances. I mean, hell, look at Marvel Legends right now. Look at fucking Marvel Legends. You see that Venom figure they put out?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. That's a big figure. I bet it sold out.
Did it sell out?
I bet it does. I bet it does, though.
It's $60. It's $60.
That Spider-Man Max figure sold out.
Well, I know. I bought 2 of them. Or I ordered 2. I guess I haven't bought them yet.
Yeah.
Technically.
I mean,
I ordered from multiple places and I wanted it. But once I saw that it sold out, I was like, I'll probably keep both of them.
They're doing nice figures. I mean, I buy some for my son, and I know they're nice figures, and I'm like, good for them. I want you guys to make money because I don't want you to. That's another thing. I don't want these companies to fail. Like people who are like, I hope they go bankrupt. I'm like, do you really? Do you really hope that? Because who the fuck's going to fill that void? Right?
Especially Hasbro.
Right.
They have so many toy lines that people love. Mattel, same with Mattel, but no one hates Mattel like they hate Hasbro. But if Mattel and Hasbro went under, well, there goes Motu. You know, there goes G.I. Joe. There goes Transformers. Who's going to take over Marvel? You know, Mask is gone, which people are just getting Mask back, so they're happy about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, man.
Yeah, tell everyone. I will continue to talk, and I'm like, I gotta wake up at 6 a.m. So
that's cool. I had a great time.
Tell everyone where they can find you, and if you do lives or what you have coming up.
Find me at Skunkworks Studios on YouTube. Just hit Skunkworks Studios, and moving forward, I got a really cool video dropping tomorrow morning. It's my What's in the Shop. I do some unboxing, some stuff I got from Japan. And then next week, got a couple videos. And then moving forward, I'm going to try to revive my Who's in the Shop live stream. And a few weeks from now, I'll be having Jim Egner from TK560 on as my first guest of the year. So be on the lookout for that. And Punk, thanks, bro, for having me on, man. I really enjoyed this. It was a good time.
Thank you. Again, I had a great time. Again, I told you sometime, these go about 3 hours, and it's been over 2.5 hours, and we could probably talk another 3 hours.
And I'm gonna cut out. I'll let you get to sleep. And by the way, guys, everybody out there, fuck Tony motherfucking Stark.
Everyone, thank you very much. I will see you guys all on Monday. I'll probably see you before then. Take care.
Bye, guys.